Chapter 2070. He had guessed that Xiao Chen was a member of the sword sect. Although he did not know Xiao Chen's exact identity, the chilling aura emitted from the saber sect's expert's body. Evidently, he did not care about the sword sect at all. He had guessed that Xiao Chen was a member of the sword sect. Although he did not know Xiao Chen's exact identity, the chilling aura emitted from the saber sect's expert's body. Evidently, he did not care about the sword sect at all. However, Xiao Chen did not respond to this at all, nor did he intend to reply. He did not even bother to speak to the saber sect's expert. Xiao Chen had already slashed out with his sword. The sword light streaked across the sky and slashed towards the saber sect's expert with lightning speed. The saber sect's expert did not expect Xiao Chen to suddenly attack. Faced with Xiao Chen's attack, the saber sect's expert was enraged. He immediately drew his saber and slashed out. The two attacks collided violently. This attack was only a casual attack from Xiao Chen, so the saber sect's expert was able to smoothly receive it. However, this was only the beginning. Just as the saber sect's expert received Xiao Chen's attack, an indescribable aura suddenly emitted from Xiao Chen's body. Subsequently, the sword domain was unleashed. Sword domain? Insignificant skill. Sensing the power of Xiao Chen's sword domain, the saber sect's expert snorted coldly. Immediately after, he also unleashed his own saber domain to resist. Xiao Chen did not directly unleash the sword domain because he did not want to reveal his identity. In the Great Thousand World, those who possessed the sword domain were extremely rare. Currently, the only known sword cultivator who possessed the sword body was the current sect master of the sword sect, Xiao Chen. Hence, once Xiao Chen unleashed the sword domain, even many people present would be able to guess his identity. Moreover, Xiao Chen didn't even have to utilize the sword world to deal with this expert of the saber sect. Xiao Chen wasn't afraid of anyone at the same cultivation realm as him. Their domains clashed against each other. Both of their domains had reached the perfect realm, and they seemed to be evenly matched. However, just as the domain powers of the two collided, Xiao Chen's feet moved, and his figure instantly disappeared from where he stood. Seeing this, the expression of the cultivator from the saber sect changed slightly. Xiao Chen's speed was indeed extraordinarily fast. There was even a moment when the cultivator from the saber sect was unable to detect Xiao Chen's movement. By the time he discovered Xiao Chen had already appeared on his left. Xiao Chen swung his sword, and the saber sect expert immediately moved to block. Are all the members of your sword sect trash like this? Do you think you can defeat me with such a move? The expert from the sword clan did not sense any danger from Xiao Chen's attack. With his strength, it was easy for him to block it. The sword and blade collided. However, just when the saber sect expert thought he had blocked Xiao Chen's attack, he never thought that Xiao Chen's attack was not just a physical attack. It also contained a spiritual slash. Fusing an ordinary attack with a spiritual slash was a martial skill that Xiao Chen had created himself. As his cultivation grew, Xiao Chen discovered that a simple spiritual slash was very difficult to use. This was because basically all cultivators at the Dao realm possessed extremely sharp senses. A simple spiritual slash would be discovered very easily. However, if the spiritual slash was fused with an ordinary attack, it would be different. Xiao Chen had put in a lot of effort into this, and now he had succeeded. Moreover, Xiao Chen was already proficient in using it. At this moment, the saber sect expert seemed to have blocked Xiao Chen's attack, but in reality, he had not. This was because the spiritual slash hidden in the dark had struck his soul. Spiritual slash. Following Xiao Chen's soft cry, the expert from the saber sect immediately let out a blood-curdling scream, as if he was enduring some great pain. From the outside, there were clearly no wounds, but the saber sect expert appeared to be in extreme pain. At first, everyone was puzzled, but soon, some of the more perceptive people saw the clues and began to speak. Spiritual slash. Looking at the Saber sect expert's pained appearance, many people could tell that it was because of the spiritual slash. Fusing the soul slash with an ordinary attack was truly unheard of. After all, the attacking methods of the two were completely different. Wanting to successfully fuse them together was not a simple matter. The intense pain in the Saber sect expert's soul was unbearable. However, he was a Tao realm expert after all. Just a spiritual slash alone could not defeat him. Forcefully enduring the intense pain in his soul, the Saber sect expert glared at Xiao Chen with scarlet eyes and shouted angrily. He had never imagined that Xiao Chen's attack would be so strange. An ordinary attack actually contained a spiritual slash. However, in the face of his angry shout, Xiao Chen did not give him a chance to speak. Immediately, another spiritual slash came down. This time, the power of the spiritual slash was much stronger than the previous two. Facing Xiao Chen's attack again, the Saber sect expert no longer dared to underestimate it. Who knew if Xiao Chen's attack also contained a spiritual slash? He had no choice but to divert a portion of his attention to Xiao Chen's spiritual slash. Unfortunately, Xiao Chen's attack did not contain a spiritual slash. After successfully blocking Xiao Chen's attack, the Saber sect expert also realized this point. However, he still did not dare to be careless. The most disgusting thing about being able to fuse a spiritual slash with an ordinary attack was that one did not know when Xiao Chen's attack would contain a spiritual slash. Therefore, at all times, one had to be on guard against Xiao Chen's spiritual slash. As a result, one naturally could not fully deal with Xiao Chen's frontal attack. At all times, one had to divert a portion of one's attention to guard against Xiao Chen's spiritual slash. As a result, the Saber sect expert's battle strength was naturally greatly reduced. On the contrary, Xiao Chen could freely control when he used the spiritual slash. As a result, Xiao Chen naturally held the absolute initiative. As he was afraid of Xiao Chen's spiritual slash, the Saber sect expert could only passively take the beating. As a result, the more he fought, the angrier he became. At the same time, his defense against the spiritual slash became more and more relaxed. Xiao Chen sharply grasped this opportunity and slashed out once more. It did not seem any different from before, but just when the Saber sect expert blocked Xiao Chen's attack, the spiritual slash appeared once more. It was another soul slash. Although the Blade Master reacted as soon as he sensed this, he was still a step too late. The soul slash viciously struck the Blade Master's soul once again. Immediately, the pain that felt like he had fallen into hell engulfed his entire body once again. At the same time, he could not help but cry out miserably once again. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2071. Xiao Chen's strange, unpredictable, and indefensible soul slash made the Blade sect expert suffer greatly. He was struck by the soul slash once again, but this time, Xiao Chen did not give the Blade sect expert any chance. He directly leapt up and stabbed out viciously. Although the Blade sect expert wanted to resist Xiao Chen's attack, the intense pain that constantly radiated from his soul left him powerless. He could only do his best to avoid being hit in his vitals. However, Xiao Chen's attack still viciously pierced through the Blade sect expert's shoulder. The Blade sect expert could no longer care about anything else after being injured. He directly retreated. At the same time, Xiao Chen naturally would not let him do as he wished. He leapt up and chased after him once again. The intense pain in his soul was suppressed. However, this Saber sect expert had already fallen into a disadvantageous position. In reality, if Xiao Chen was willing to reveal his sword body, he would not have to go through so much trouble to defeat the Blade sect expert. This was because the Blade sect expert was only at the beginning of the Tao realm. His cultivation was the same as Xiao Chen's, but their battle prowess could not be compared at all. There was a huge gap between them. However, even if Xiao Chen did not reveal his sword body, the blade sect expert would still find it difficult to deal with him. Victory was only a matter of time. He had no idea when Xiao Chen would use the soul slash. In addition, he was already injured. The more he fought, the more strenuous it became for the saber master. Facing Xiao Chen's storm-like attacks, it became increasingly difficult for him to withstand. The situation could already be said to be one-sided. The blade sect expert did not have much ability to retaliate at all before Xiao Chen. After several dozen moves, Xiao Chen grasped the opportunity. Just like how the blade sect expert had dealt with the sword sect elder, Xiao Chen viciously kicked the blade sect expert to the ground. Afterwards, before the blade sect expert could stand up, Xiao Chen had already stomped on his chest. Fresh blood flowed out of his mouth. At the same time, Xiao Chen looked down at the expert from the saber sect and said, "I said before that I shouldn't be weaker than the people from the saber sect. It looks like that is indeed the case." Victory and defeat had been decided. Looking at the scene in the arena, the two Swords Gate disciples who had been watching the battle from the beginning clenched their fists in excitement. Earlier, the elder of the sword school had been humiliated to the extreme by this expert from the saber sect, and even the entire sword school had been humiliated by this expert. Now, someone had stepped forward to ruthlessly trample on this expert from the saber sect. How could they not be excited? But in the midst of their excitement, the two Swords Gate disciples were puzzled. Who was this masked man? Could it be a sword elder in the sect? "It should be a sword elder in the sect," said one of the disciples. The other disciple nodded. "It should be. Let's see if the Blade sect still dares to say that there's no one in our sword sect now." They were indeed elated. As for Xiao Chen's identity, the two disciples were unwilling to investigate. In any case, he was a senior of their sword sect. Did it matter who he was? The two of them clearly did not know that the person standing on the stage was the sect master of their sword sect. If the two of them knew this, who knew what they would think? The two disciples of Swords Gate were extremely excited. On the other side, there were three people who were also wearing masks and whose identities could not be recognized. At this moment, the faces hidden under the masks were extremely gloomy. Among them, the person in the lead even said coldly, "What a disgrace! Don't worry, young sect master. I will personally take action and make these pieces of trash from the sword sect face reality." One of the people to the side spoke. The three of them were also from the saber sect. The person in the middle, the leader, was very young under the mask. If it were not for the mask, there would probably be many people who would recognize him because he was the junior sect master of the saber sect, the only son of the saber sect's master. The appearance of the young sect master of the Blade sect in Emperor City was indeed something that no one had expected. However, the young sect master coldly replied when he heard the words of the person beside him. "No need. I will personally take action." The young sect master wanted to personally take action. When they heard this, the two Blade sect experts did not dare to object. The person who had spoken earlier nodded repeatedly. As for the other person who had not spoken since the beginning, he remained extremely calm and indifferent. Since the young sect master wanted to personally take action, the two of them were not too worried. This was because the young sect master was very powerful. Although his cultivation was also at the initial stage of the Tao realm, in terms of battle prowess, he could match an ordinary cultivator at the perfect stage of the Tao realm. Moreover, what caught the attention of many experts in the Blade sect was the fact that the young sect master possessed a blade body. A blade body was like a sword body. It was a constitution that countless blade cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. With his blade body, the young sect master could be said to be an invincible existence in the Tao realm. As such, in this Tao realm martial arts arena, there was basically no one who could threaten the young sect master. The two of them were not too worried about the young sect master personally taking action. Moreover, as the young sect master of the Blade sect, he naturally could not be a piece of trash. Otherwise, how could he inherit the powerful Blade sect in the future? The young sect master could be said to have been tempered since he was young. Although his status was noble, he was definitely not a flower in a greenhouse. He slowly stood up and glanced at Xiao Chen, who was in the arena. At the same time, Xiao Chen also seemed to sense the young sect master's gaze. He stepped on the Blade sect expert and turned his head to meet the young sect master's gaze. As their eyes met, the two of them knew the identity of the person hidden under the mask. However, at this moment, the corners of the young sect master's mouth gradually curled into a smile as he spoke softly. "I hope that you can interest me a little." After speaking, he walked towards the martial arts competition registration area. When he saw this, Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze. At the same time, he guessed that this fellow was probably also from the Blade sect. Moreover, Xiao Chen's intuition told him that this person was not simple and was very powerful. However, even so, Xiao Chen's battle intent secretly rose in his heart. He once again looked at the Blade sect expert that he had stepped on. Honestly speaking, Xiao Chen was not too interested in him, and could not be bothered to continue humiliating him. Xiao Chen indifferently opened his mouth and spoke. "I know that there are other people from your Blade sect present. Therefore, a piece of trash like you should not come on stage and embarrass yourself. To be honest, if the Blade sect, which was once equally famous as the Sword sect, were all trash like you, then I would really be very disappointed. After all, wouldn't that be very boring?" After speaking, Xiao Chen sent the Blade sect expert flying with a kick. He fiercely fell off the arena. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2072. Xiao Chen was no longer interested in humiliating the Saber sect expert, as it was meaningless. Xiao Chen was looking forward to the battle with the Saber sect's junior sect master, as Xiao Chen's intuition told him that this person was very strong, ridiculously strong. Xiao Chen was no longer interested in humiliating the Saber sect expert, as it was meaningless. Xiao Chen was looking forward to the battle with the Saber sect's junior sect master, as Xiao Chen's intuition told him that this person was very strong, ridiculously strong. It was also because Xiao Chen was the sect master of the Sword sect that Xiao Chen had spent almost all of his energy on cultivation and the matters of the Sword sect ever since he came to the Great Thousand World. As a result, although he had been in the Great Thousand World for so many years, Xiao Chen had basically never come into contact with the geniuses of the same generation as himself. If there was one person, it would be his fourth senior sister, Xiao Xiao. Xiao Chen was very unfamiliar with the geniuses of the same generation as himself in the Great Thousand World. Although Xiao Chen did not know the identity of the person just now, his intuition told him that this person was very young and should be about the same age as himself. In that case, it was very likely that this person was one of the geniuses of the Great Thousand World. Of course, this was only Xiao Chen's intuition and guess. He could not be certain. Xiao Chen could be said to have defeated the Saber sect expert in a crushing manner. After the people in the arena announced the victor, Xiao Chen returned to his previous private room to rest and wait for the next battle. The rest time was 2 hours. At this moment, in another private room, the Saber sect's junior sect master, Dao Ju, had completed his registration. At this moment, there were a total of 4 people in the private room. Apart from Dao Ju and 2 other experts from the Saber sect, the last person was the Saber sect's elder that Xiao Chen had defeated earlier. At this moment, this person had already taken off his mask, revealing an extremely ordinary face with traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. However, at this moment, this person was kneeling in front of Dao Ju in self-reproach. Obviously, his defeat had made Dao Ju very dissatisfied. However, Dao Ju did not scold him. Looking at the person kneeling on the ground, Dao Ju only said indifferently, "Get up. There is always someone better out there. It's fine if you are weaker than others." Dao Ju did not punish this person. Dao Ju's prestige in the Saber sect, and this prestige did not come from his identity. Dao Ju's father, the sect master of the Saber sect, an emperor-level master. Dao Ju's prestige in the Saber sect could be said to be completely based on his own abilities. In the Saber sect, almost all the experts worshipped Dao Ju. This worship came from the bottom of their hearts. This was also the most direct manifestation of Dao Ju's own abilities. It could be said that even without his father, Dao Ju's own abilities alone were more than enough to take the position of sect master of the Saber sect. This was because everyone supported him. Hearing Dao Ju's words, the middle-aged man said in a deep voice, "Junior sect master, this subordinate will not fail again next time." Good. Hearing this, Dao Ju nodded slightly and did not say anything. However, Dao Ju knew in his heart that it was almost impossible for him to defeat Xiao Chen with his talent. In the future, the gap between him and Xiao Chen would only grow bigger and bigger. It was even more impossible for him to defeat Xiao Chen. However, Dao Ju did not say this out loud because it was meaningless. As the junior sect master of the Saber sect, what reason did Dao Ju have to attack a member of his own sect? He patiently waited for the 2-hour break. In fact, Xiao Chen's consumption was not very great. This was because in the previous battle, Xiao Chen did not use the sword body, so he did not need to rest at all. However, this was the rule of the martial arena, so Xiao Chen could not do anything about it. While Xiao Chen was resting in the private room, Xiao Xiao also came. As Xiao Chen's friend, she naturally could come. Moreover, what Xiao Chen did not expect was that not long after Xiao Xiao came, the 2 sword sect disciples who had been watching the battle from the spectator stand also took the initiative to come over. When they saw Xiao Chen, they took the initiative to take off their masks and respectfully bowed. Sword sect disciples greet Elder Sword Head. In their hearts, Xiao Chen was definitely the sword sect's Elder Sword Head. However, Xiao Chen did not have any influence on them. This was normal. After all, Xiao Chen couldn't possibly remember every single disciple of the sword sect. The 2 disciples were obviously incomparably respectful to Xiao Chen. Moreover, even after the battle ended, there was still a trace of excitement in their eyes. Looking at the 2, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "There's no need for that. You 2 can sit." He indicated for the 2 to sit. In front of Xiao Chen, the 2 disciples were clearly a little nervous. As for Xiao Chen, he casually asked about the injuries of the sword sect elder from before. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, the 2 of them immediately opened their mouths and replied, Elder Lin's injuries are no longer serious. He has already woken up. Elder Lin from before was not seriously injured." Hearing this, Xiao Chen nodded slightly and then said indifferently, "After returning to the sword sect, Elder Lin can apply for the assessment to be promoted to Elder Sword Head." From the 2 of them, Xiao Chen already knew Elder Lin's identity. He knew that Elder Lin had just broken through to the Dao realm and that the upper echelons of the sword sect were still unaware. With another Dao realm expert, Xiao Chen was naturally happy. Moreover, although Elder Lin had lost the battle, it was not to say that he was incapable. After all, he had just broken through to the Dao realm. If he had some time to stabilize his cultivation, Elder Lin might not have lost the previous battle. At the very least, he would have a 50% chance of winning. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the 2 disciples were delighted. They were both Elder Lin's disciples. If Elder Lin could be promoted to Elder Sword Head, it would naturally be good news for them. As they chatted, 2 hours quickly passed. The people in the arena also informed Xiao Chen if he wanted to proceed with the next battle. As the arena master, Xiao Chen could naturally choose to give up. However, Xiao Chen did not give up because Xiao Chen also wanted to fight with Dao Ju. He walked out of the private room and arrived at the arena. At the same time, Dao Ju did the same. The two of them stood facing each other in the arena. Although they were wearing masks, they could feel the fighting spirit in each other's eyes. Dao Ju looked at Xiao Qin and said, "I feel that you are not simple. I really want to fight with you. If you are not strong on the outside but weak on the inside, I will treat you to a drink after the battle." Dao Ju did not have any enmity towards Xiao Qin other than being angry at Xiao Qin for embarrassing the sword sect in the beginning. However, at this moment, facing Xiao Qin, the little bit of enmity in Dao Ju's heart had already dissipated. At this moment, Dao Ju really only wanted to fight with Xiao Qin because he did not know why, but when facing Xiao Qin, Dao Ju felt that he wanted to defeat him. Or rather, he had to defeat him. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2073. Due to their masks, Xiao Qin and Dao Ju did not know each other's identities. Their eyes met. Hearing Dao Ju's words, Xiao Qin smiled and said, "Let's talk after we fight." Hearing this, Dao Ju did not say anything else. With a thought, an ordinary-looking long saber appeared in his hand. With the long saber in hand, Dao Ju's aura became even sharper. Feeling Dao Ju's sharp aura, Xiao Qin did not dare to be careless. He also took out his dustless sword. The saber domain and the sword domain exploded at the same time. Their domains collided with each other, but it was obvious that they were evenly matched. Neither of them could do anything to the other. At the same time, Dao Ju unleashed his domain. Then, he made the first move. He fiercely slashed out with his saber. The saber light flashed and went straight for Xiao Qin. Facing Dao Ju's saber, Xiao Qin also slashed out with his saber. The saber collided with Dao Ju's saber, and the two of them cancelled each other out. After blocking Dao Ju's saber, Xiao Qin took the initiative to attack. His feet moved, and his figure instantly appeared in front of Dao Ju. Then, he stabbed out with his sword. Soul Slash. An ordinary attack with a Soul Slash. Facing Xiao Qin's attack, Dao Ju did not panic at all. It was as if he had already expected this. He raised his saber to block Xiao Qin's chaotic battle. At the same time, the Soul Slash within the Soul Slash went straight for Dao Ju. In response, Dao Ju softly shouted, "Dao Ming, defend." He allowed Xiao Qin's Soul Slash to hit him. However, this time, the Soul Slash did not cause any damage to Dao Ju. It could be said that he had perfectly blocked Xiao Qin's Soul Slash. In response, Dao Ju said calmly, "Soul Slash is useless against me." From the previous battle, Dao Ju already knew that Xiao Qin had a soul attack martial skill. It was very strange, but to him, soul attacks were not much of a threat. Dao Ju could easily block them perfectly. The Soul Slash had completely lost its effect on Dao Ju. Xiao Qin wasn't too surprised by this. After all, it would be strange if a genius like Dao Ju couldn't even handle a Soul Slash. Xiao Qin wasn't discouraged by Dao Ju's defense in the chaotic battle. After his first attack failed, Xiao Qin attacked again. In the arena, the two of them fought fiercely. It was difficult to tell who had the upper hand. However, up until now, both Xiao Qin and Dao Ju had not used their full strength. At least, neither of them had used the power of their sword physique or Dao physique. For a moment, neither of them had the upper hand. In response, many of the spectators were very nervous. The battle between Xiao Qin and Dao Ju was simply too exciting. Apart from the power of their physiques, both of them could be said to have gone all out. Although they were only at the beginning stage of the Dao realm, in terms of combat strength, Xiao Qin and Dao Ju were not weaker than ordinary Dao realm culmination warriors. Very quickly, the two of them had exchanged hundreds of blows. However, up until now they were still evenly matched. Neither of them had the upper hand. The power of their domains collided wantonly in the arena. Due to the protective array in the arena, the aftershocks of their battle didn't affect the spectators. Like the others, Xiao Xiao looked at the two of them fighting fiercely in the arena. At this moment, her gaze fell on Dao Ju. There was a thoughtful look in her eyes. As the holy maiden of the Moon Palace and one of the top geniuses in the Great Thousand World, Xiao Xiao was obviously more familiar with Dao Ju than Xiao Chen. Therefore, even though Dao Ju didn't show his sword physique, Xiao Xiao could still guess something. A person from the Saber faction who was only at the beginning stage of the Dao realm possessed such powerful combat strength. There weren't many people like him in the Saber faction. He had already begun to suspect Dao Ju's identity. At the same time, Dao Ju, who had fought with Xiao Chen for hundreds of moves, took the initiative to stop his attacks. He looked at Xiao Chen and spoke faintly. "You didn't disappoint me. However, if we continue to fight like this, it will be difficult to determine a winner. Why don't you show your true abilities?" Xiao Chen's strength had earned Dao Ju's recognition. At the same time, Dao Ju also knew that he was not the only one who had fought until now. Xiao Chen had also not shown his true strength. As such, it was impossible for the two of them to determine a winner. He suggested that both of them show their true abilities. Hearing this, Xiao Chen didn't reply. Dao Ju didn't seem to care. As soon as he finished speaking, before Xiao Chen could reply, a familiar aura rose from Dao Ju's body. Sword physique. At this moment, Dao Ju displayed his sword physique. The power of the Dao realm quickly enveloped the entire arena. Xiao Chen was also enveloped by Dao Ju's sword realm. Once the sword physique was displayed, Dao Ju's identity was quickly recognized. The first person to confirm Dao Ju's identity was naturally Xiao Xiao. Previously, Xiao Xiao had already guessed Dao Ju's identity. Now that he displayed his sword realm, Xiao Xiao was certain of Dao Ju's identity. She revealed a faint smile and said, "It is indeed you." In the entire Great Thousand World, the only person who knew that he possessed a sword physique was the young sect leader of the Saber sect, Dao Ju. Now that he displayed his sword physique, there was no longer any doubt about Dao Ju's identity. Xiao Xiao wasn't the only one. Very quickly, many of the spectators in the arena had also guessed Dao Ju's identity. When they felt the terrifying power of the Sword Realm, many of them couldn't help but speak out. Sword Realm. He is the young sect leader of the Saber sect, Dao Ju. Dao Ju? Young sect leader of the Saber sect? As one of the few supreme talents in the Great Thousand World and the young sect leader of the Saber sect, Dao Ju was naturally the center of attention in the Great Thousand World. Therefore, when his identity was revealed, the crowd couldn't help but become excited. After all, it was a rare opportunity to witness Dao Ju's battle with their own eyes. Through the crowd's discussion, Xiao Chen also found out Dao Ju's identity. Enveloped by the Sword Realm, Xiao Chen looked indifferently at Dao Ju in front of him. Under his mask, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and he said with a smile, "So you are the young sect leader of the Saber sect, Dao Ju. Looks like I am quite lucky today to be able to battle with a legendary supreme talent." Naturally, Xiao Chen had heard of Dao Ju's name. Hearing this, Dao Ju smiled and said, "Then who are you?" Xiao Chen knew Dao Ju's identity, but Dao Ju didn't know who Xiao Chen was. However, as Dao Ju spoke, although Xiao Chen didn't open his mouth to reply, an aura that wasn't any weaker than Dao Ju's instantly soared into the sky. Feeling this aura, Dao Ju's expression changed slightly, and he said softly, "Sword Realm. Please add it to your collection, monthly vote, recommend it." The error-free chapters of Sword Master Vast Expanse will continue to be updated in the hand fighting bar. There are no advertisements on the website. Please add it to your collection and recommend it. If you like Sword Master Vast Expanse, please add it to your collection. Sword Master Vast Expanse is the fastest to update in the hand fighting bar. Chapter 2074. After Dao Ju cast the Saber Realm, Xiao Chen also unleashed the power of the sword. At that moment, the power of their realms seemed to have split the entire arena into two. After Dao Ju cast the saber realm, Shao Chen also unleashed the power of the sword. At that moment, the power of their realms seemed to have split the entire arena into two. Around Dao Ju, there were long sabers coalesced from the power of the realms, while around Shao Chen, there were blood-red swords. Their powers of the realms collided constantly, as though sparks were going to be visible to the naked eye. In the face of the power of the sword realm that Shao Chen displayed, Dao Ju was taken aback. But shortly after, he said, "Sect leader of the sword sect, Shao Chen through the sword realm," Dao Ju instantly guessed Shao Chen's identity. After all, the sword body was as rare as the saber body. Currently, in the entire Great Thousand World, Shao Chen was the only person who possessed the sword body that everyone was most familiar with. Moreover, Shao Chen had previously stated that he was a member of the sword sect, so it wasn't too difficult for Dao Ju to guess Shao Chen's identity based on these 2 points. Upon hearing Dao Ju's words, Shao Chen didn't deny it. After all, he had used the sword body and Shao Chen knew that he couldn't hide his identity. With a thought, a blood-red sword appeared in Shao Chen's hand. With the sword in hand and the full power of the sword body erupting, Shao Chen's aura was obviously several times stronger than before. To put it bluntly, their previous battle was just a warm-up. And now, both of them had given it their all. In an instant, judging from their auras, Shao Chen's cultivation base was already close to the Dao Realm Perfection stage, possessing the battle strength of the Dao Realm Perfection stage despite only being in the initial stage of the Dao Realm. This was the terrifying thing about the top geniuses of the Great Thousand World. Upon sensing the majestic and terrifying aura from Shao Chen, the battle intent in Dao Ju's eyes intensified. In fact, Dao Ju had been paying attention to Shao Chen since a long time ago. After all, Dao Ju knew that Shao Chen was the only sword cultivator who possessed the sword body. It could be said that in Dao Ju's eyes, Shao Chen was destined to be his opponent. Saber body and sword body, saber cultivator and sword cultivator. Dao Ju had long wanted to battle Shao Chen. However, Shao Chen had always been preoccupied with the sword sect, so the two of them didn't have much of a chance to come into contact. Moreover, with Dao Ju's character, he wouldn't battle Shao Chen at this time because the time wasn't right yet. If Shao Chen could one day restore the sword sect to its former glory and once again return to the 10 great Lingtian sects, then Dao Ju would definitely battle Shao Chen. However, if Shao Chen failed in the future, then there would naturally be no need for this. He didn't expect his opponent to be the sect leader of the sword sect, Shao Chen. He also didn't expect their battle to be so sudden and coincidental. Dao Ju's battle intent continued to rise in his heart. He stretched out his hand and a long saber appeared in his hand. At the same time, the aura on his body continued to rise. Dao Ju couldn't hide his excitement as he looked at Shao Chen. "I didn't expect to meet you in such a way. Shao Chen, I've wanted to battle you for a long time." After he finished speaking, Dao Ju didn't wait for Shao Chen's reply and immediately slashed out with his saber. A terrifying saber ray flashed and went straight for Shao Chen. With the boost from the realm energy, Dao Ju's attack naturally couldn't be compared to his previous attack. Facing Dao Ju's attack, Shao Chen didn't have the slightest intention of dodging. He also slashed out with his sword. A blood-red saber ray flashed and collided fiercely with Dao Ju's attack. Their attacks collided fiercely. This time, even the battle arena's array showed signs of trembling, as if it was about to be destroyed by their attack. Sensing the trembling of the array, the people in the battle arena immediately activated the array with all their might. They hoped that the array would be able to maintain its operation and not be destroyed by the aftermath of the battle between the two. After the attack, the two moved their feet at the same time and immediately engaged in a fierce battle. They didn't care about anything around them. At this moment, in their eyes, there was only each other and the battle. As the two fought fiercely and went all out, Xiao Chen and Dao Ju's speed was extremely fast. Some of the people present who didn't have a high enough cultivation level couldn't even see their movements clearly. They could only see two shadows constantly colliding on the arena. The collision of the realm energy could indeed be described as terrifying. At this moment, Xiao Chen's identity was naturally guessed by many people present. For a moment, Xiao Chen and Dao Ju, although they still wore masks on their faces, their identities could be said to have been made public. When they thought that this battle was between the current sect leader of the Sword Sect and the young sect leader of the Saber Sect, the people in the sect became even more excited. After all, Xiao Chen and Dao Ju could be said to be giants in the Great Thousand World. In addition to their strength, their identities were enough to make everyone present look up to them. With the revelation of their identities, the atmosphere in the battle arena became completely lively. At the same time, in the private room, the two disciples of the Sword Sect stood behind Xiao Xiao and watched the battle on the arena. They were so shocked that they stuttered. Sect leader. Previously, the two of them thought that Xiao Chen was just a Sword Sect elder. Who would have thought that the person fighting on the arena was actually their sect leader of the Sword Sect? At this moment, looking at Xiao Chen on the arena, the two disciples couldn't hide the admiration in their eyes. When Xiao Xiao heard their words, he chuckled and said, "Sect leader of the Sword Sect and young sect leader of the Saber Sect. It seems like we made the right choice to come this time." Even Xiao Xiao was full of interest in the battle between Xiao Chen and Dao Ju. It couldn't be helped. Both of them were monstrous geniuses in the Great Thousand World. How could a battle between them not be exciting? Xiao Xiao ignored the two disciples of the Sword Sect. When they heard Xiao Xiao's words, the two disciples also watched the battle on the arena intently. After all, this was a battle between their sect leaders. On the arena, Xiao Chen and Dao Ju were locked in a fierce battle. Countless powerful martial arts and immortal skills constantly collided with each other. At this moment, the entire arena could no longer withstand the powerful pressure of the two worlds and was completely destroyed. As for the formation, it was activated to the maximum by the battle arena, so there were no problems for the time being. Looking at such an intense battle, many of the spectators couldn't help but murmur, "With such strength, they are already invincible in the Dao realm." But their cultivation bases are only at the beginner Dao realm. The beginner Dao realm had the strength comparable to the great perfection Dao realm. Many of the spectators present had never seen such a battle before. At the same time, the battle between Xiao Chen and Dao Ju quickly spread to the ears of the person in charge of the battle arena. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2075. The battle arena was jointly built by the Moon Palace, Heaven Policy Hall, Saber Sect, and the other three Lingtian sects. Naturally, there were people in charge of it. Moreover, it was said that there were at least 4 end-realm powerhouses in the battle arena all year round to prevent people from causing trouble in the battle arena. At this moment, news of the battle between Xiao Chen and Dao Ju had spread to the ears of the person in charge of the arena. All of a sudden, the person in charge of the arena didn't dare to underestimate it. Not mentioning Xiao Chen, after all, the Sword Sect had nothing to do with the fighting arena. However, Dao Ju was different. As the young sect leader of the Blade Sect, the arena belonged to the Blade Sect. As such, the person in charge of the arena naturally didn't dare to be careless. Very quickly, the 4 End Realm experts in charge of the arena all came to the Dao Realm fighting arena. Looking at the battle on the arena, one of them opened his mouth and said, "The blade body and sword body are both unparalleled physiques. What are you saying all this for? Should we stop them? If the young sect leader is injured, I won't be able to escape the blame." Hearing this, another person opened his mouth. This person was obviously more worried about Dao Ju's safety. This wasn't strange because this person was from the Blade Sect. Naturally, he would be more concerned about Dao Ju's situation. However, hearing his words, the only female amongst the four said calmly, "How do we stop them? Take down the sword sect leader Xiao Chen? If you have the ability, then go yourself. Don't blame me for not reminding you that the sword sect isn't the same as before." Xiao Chen and Dao Ju were fighting fairly. If one directly stopped them without any reason, it was against the rules. Moreover, from what this person said, it was obvious that he was prepared to attack Xiao Chen to stop this battle. This was simply a joke. Admittedly, Xiao Chen wasn't the match of an End-Realm expert. However, one couldn't forget that there was still an existence in the sword sect that couldn't be offended. That was Jun Weiyao. It wasn't a secret that Jun Weiyao was the old ancestor of the sword sect. Moreover, he was Xiao Chen's master. If one attacked Xiao Chen now, that would be an extremely stupid action. Hearing this, the middle-aged man was slightly stunned. Then, he didn't say anything more. Although he was from the Blade sect, if he offended Jun Weiyao, he probably wouldn't have a good ending. Most importantly, if he attacked now, there was no reason for him to do so. In silence, the four of them watched the battle on the field. They didn't have any intention of stopping it. After all, the arena had its own rules. Even if the person on the field was Dao Ju, they couldn't openly break the rules of the arena. Moreover, Xiao Chen, who was fighting against Dao Ju, wasn't an easy person to deal with. The four of them patiently watched every move on the field. At the same time, the battle between Xiao Chen and Dao Ju had reached its most crucial point. The two of them had already exchanged hundreds of moves. Up until now, neither of them had gained an advantage. At this moment, Dao Ju's aura continued to rise. He looked at Xiao Chen with a battle intent in his eyes. "Let's end it in one move." "That's what I was thinking." Hearing this, Xiao Chen said calmly. The strength of the two could be said to be almost the same. It would be difficult to determine the winner if they continued to fight like this. Therefore, Dao Ju proposed to decide the winner with one move, which was exactly what Xiao Chen wanted. Seeing Xiao Chen nod in agreement, Dao Ju's mouth, which was hidden under his mask, revealed a slight smile. Then, the long swords around him all turned and locked onto Xiao Chen. 10,000 swords piercing the heavens. With a light shout, countless long swords madly attacked Xiao Chen. In response, the countless long swords around Xiao Chen's body gathered together to form a huge blood sword. The blood sword was 100 feet long, and it floated behind Xiao Chen. Since Dao Ju had used his killer move, Xiao Chen naturally wouldn't be careless. Activating the sword body with all his strength, the huge blood sword also headed straight for Dao Ju. He also shouted softly, "Heaven-breaking sword." Under Jun Wuya's guidance, Xiao Chen's use of the sword body had matured a lot. Heaven-breaking sword was a celestial technique that Xiao Chen had created based on the sword body. The huge blood-red sword and the countless blades collided violently. Afterwards, all the spectators present saw was space instantly collapse. A huge spatial crack appeared in the center of the arena. At the same time, the formation that protected everyone began to tremble violently from the shockwaves of their battle. The power of this attack had already broken through the restrictions of the Dao realm and reached the End realm. Two people who were only at the beginning of the Dao realm were actually able to unleash an attack that wasn't weaker than an End realm expert. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, who would believe it? The blood sword and long swords fiercely clashed. Under the aftermath, Xiao Chen and Dao Ju were both injured. The huge power caused the masks on their faces to quickly shatter, revealing their true faces. However, at this moment, a trace of blood flowed out from the corners of their mouths. It was obvious that they were injured. The collision continued. The collision between the two of them could be said to be an existence that could destroy the heavens and the earth. The surrounding people were all shocked. Only after around an hour did the blood sword and the long blade slowly dissipate. The entire battle arena was in a mess at this moment. The formation that protected everyone was in imminent danger, as if it could collapse at any moment. However, at this moment, everyone's eyes all looked towards Xiao Chun and Dao Ju. They wanted to see the final result. How is it? Who won? Someone couldn't help but ask. After such a terrifying collision, who won in the end? This was what everyone was most concerned about. Under everyone's gaze, the dust slowly dissipated. Xiao Qin and Dao Ju's figures appeared in front of everyone once again. The masks on their faces were completely shattered. At this moment, they stood facing each other. No one could tell who won and who lost. After such a terrifying attack, neither of them fell to the ground. Moreover, at this moment their eyes met. This was the first time Xiao Qin and Dao Ju saw each other's appearance. They were both young, handsome, and dignified. Xiao Qin was the first to speak. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. It seems like it's difficult to determine the winner. Haha, that's right. However, although this is the case in terms of strength, it's hard to say how much you can drink. I said that I would treat you to a drink. Hearing this, Dao Ju laughed. In the end, the two of them were tied. Although both of them were injured, neither of them was at a disadvantage. Dao Ju was indeed the first genius that Xiao Chun had met since he came to the Great Thousand World. His combat strength was indeed strong and could not be underestimated. In particular, Dao Ju's strength was above his peers and even those of the older generation. Please bookmark, vote, recommend. Sword Master Vast Expanse chapters will continue to be updated in the hand fighting bar. There are no advertisements on the website. Please bookmark and recommend the hand fighting bar. If you like Sword Master Vast Expanse, please bookmark. Sword Master Vast Expanse hand fighting bar is the fastest to update. Chapter 2076. The battle between Xiao Qin and Dao Ju could be said to be very exciting. Even after the two of them stopped, many of the spectators were still in a daze for a long time. This was indeed the first time they had seen such a high-level battle between geniuses. The battle between Xiao Qin and Dao Ju could be said to be very exciting. Even after the two of them stopped, many of the spectators were still in a daze for a long time. This was indeed the first time they had seen such a high-level battle between geniuses. In the end, there was no winner. Xiao Qin and Dao Ju returned to the private room together. In the private room, Xiao Xiao, who was wearing a mask, saw Xiao Qin and took the initiative to greet him. How was it, junior brother? The geniuses of the Great Thousand World are not weak, right? It's your fault for not paying attention to the outside world in the past. Xiao Xiao said jokingly. Hearing this, Xiao Qin could only smile bitterly. However, Dao Ju, who did not know Xiao Xiao's identity, looked at Xiao Xiao with a puzzled expression. Through the voice, Dao Ju felt that it was very familiar. One was the young sect leader of the Saber sect, and the other was the saintess of the Moon Palace. Naturally, the two of them were familiar with each other. Seeing the puzzled look on Dao Ju's face, Xiao Xiao took the initiative to remove the mask on her face. When Dao Ju saw Xiao Xiao's appearance, she was stunned at first. However, she immediately laughed and said, "So it's Saintess Xiao Xiao. No wonder." Xiao Xiao, Dao Ju, and Xiao Qin could be considered as geniuses of the same level. Moreover, the three of them were not simple people. Each of them had a large sect behind them. Although Xiao Xiao and Dao Ju were not actual sect leaders, unlike Xiao Qin, there was no need to doubt that provoking the two of them was no different from provoking the Saber sect or the Moon Palace. Their status, talent, and even strength were similar. Therefore, the three of them naturally had common topics to talk about. However, facing the three of them, the two disciples from the Sword sect appeared somewhat nervous. After all, none of the three people before them were people that they could climb up to. Fortunately, it did not take long. Very soon, the four people in charge of the arena and the three experts from the Saber sect arrived at the private room. When they saw Xiao Qin and Dao Ju, everyone took the initiative to greet them. However, when they saw Xiao Xiao, one of the four women smiled and said, "Xiao Xiao, why are you here?" As an End Realm expert of Moon Palace, she was naturally familiar with Xiao Xiao. Moreover, Xiao Xiao was the Moon Palace Saint daughter and her status was above hers. After hearing the words of this beautiful woman, Xiao Xiao smiled. "I came here with my junior brother. We were passing by the Emperor City, so we decided to take a look." Xiao Xiao did not reveal Jun Wuya and Luo Xing. After all, the two of them did not like to be disturbed by others. Therefore, they concealed their identities and headed to the Emperor City. After the battle ended, Xiao Chen and Dao Ju clearly did not have much interest in the following battles. Moreover, after personally witnessing the battle between Xiao Chen and Dao Ju, the spectators also felt a little dispirited and did not have much interest in watching the battles of other Dao realm experts. Very quickly, they left the arena. Xiao Chen and his group arrived at the largest restaurant in the Emperor City. It was called the Emperor Restaurant. The Emperor Restaurant occupied a large area and could be said to be famous. It was said that the wine and food here would definitely make one forget to leave. Moreover, the ladies in the Emperor Restaurant were said to be outstanding beauties, each of them like fairies that had descended to the mortal world. It could be said that the Emperor Restaurant was the #1 place to spend money in the Great Thousand World. However, Dao Ju's intelligence was very high today. Perhaps it was because he knew Xiao Chen. Those who were familiar with Dao Ju knew that although this Dao Ju was the young master of the Dao sect, he was indeed very proud. However, at the same time, he liked to make friends. Of course, the premise was that you could enter his eyes. Otherwise, with Dao Ju's temper, he would obviously not look you in the eye. As the group strode into the Di Zun Tower, a beautiful woman immediately came forward to greet them. She even directly introduced them to Xiao Chen and the others, respectfully greeting them. "Everyone, please. The private room is already prepared." Following the maid all the way to the private room, Dao Ju was no stranger to the Emperor Restaurant. He must have been a regular here. As long as he had time, Dao Ju would come to the Emperor Restaurant to relax for a few days. Xiao Chen was very satisfied with the service of the Emperor Restaurant. Although it was his first time here, the Emperor Restaurant made Xiao Chen feel at home. Not only was the maid able to accurately identify them from the beginning, but also the maid's decent performance. She was enthusiastic but not pretentious. After everyone took their seats in the private room, Xiao Chen looked at Xiao Xiao and asked, "Senior sister, is the Emperor Restaurant also supported by the 10 Great Ling Tian sects?" As the #1 restaurant in the Great Thousand World, it was obviously impossible for the Emperor Restaurant to not have the support of a powerful force. Who would believe that? Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Xiao Xiao smiled and said, "You guessed wrong." "Guessed wrong?" Hearing Xiao Zhao's words, Xiao Chen was stunned. Then, Dao Ju smiled and said, "Brother Xiao Chen, there's something you don't know. The Emperor Tower doesn't have any power behind it, unlike the martial arena. However, in the Emperor City, the Emperor Tower is an existence that you can't afford to offend because the Emperor Tower itself is one of the top 10 Ling Tian sects. The Emperor Restaurant itself is one of the 10 Great Ling Tian sects?" Hearing this, Xiao Chen was slightly taken aback. Then, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. "It seems that I am ignorant." Xiao Chen indeed did not know about the Emperor Restaurant. It could not be helped. Previously, the Sword sect was full of crises, so Xiao Chen did not have the mood to care about the situation in the Great Thousand World. Now that Jun Wuya had returned, the pressure on Xiao Chen had lessened a lot. Now, he had the mood and time to go out and understand the situation in the Great Thousand World. Seeing Xiao Chen shake his head and smile bitterly, the Dao Ju also smiled and said, "However, although the wine and dishes in the Emperor Restaurant are good, they are also very annoying." "Brother Dao Ju, what do you mean by that?" Xiao Chen asked curiously. Seeing that Xiao Chen did not know the inside story, Xiao Xiao said snappily, because this guy has been pursuing the Emperor Restaurant's courtesan Belle, but he has never succeeded. The Emperor Restaurant was different from ordinary forces. Although there were many cultivators, they did not consider themselves as disciples. Moreover, the Emperor Restaurant was similar to the Moon Palace in that there were more female cultivators. As for the Emperor Restaurant's courtesan Belle, it meant that she was the first disciple of the Emperor Restaurant. She was the strongest Heaven's Pride monster among the younger generation. Moreover, the Emperor Restaurant's courtesan Belle was devastatingly beautiful. She was not inferior to Xiao Xiao. Therefore, some busybodies called Xiao Xiao and the Emperor Restaurant's courtesan Belle the Great Thousand World. However, Xiao Xiao did not seem to like this title very much, so he never mentioned it. Please add it to your collection. Monthly votes recommend it. The error-free chapters of Sword Master 8 Desolation will continue to be updated on Green Dough. There are no advertisements on the website. Please add it to your collection and recommend Green Dough. If you like Sword Master 8 Desolation, please add it to your collection. Sword Master 8 Desolation Green Dough updates the fastest. Chapter 2077. This was the evaluation of Xiao Xiao by many of the younger generation in the great wide world. After all, there were not many people in the great wide world who could be called Heaven's Prides, and there were even fewer women among them. Therefore, Xiao Xiao and Di Zun Lu's courtesan naturally became the focus of everyone's attention. This was the evaluation of Xiao Xiao by many of the younger generation in the great wide world. After all, there were not many people in the great wide world who could be called Heaven's Prides, and there were even fewer women among them. Therefore, Xiao Xiao and Di Zun Lu's courtesan naturally became the focus of everyone's attention. Hearing Xiao Zhao's words, Saber Jew's face actually revealed a hint of blush. This was very different from his usual forthright personality. This guy actually knew how to be shy. Saber Jew rolled his eyes at Xiao Xiao and didn't say anything more. He didn't continue to pursue this issue. As the three of them chatted, the maids soon served the fine wine. Dao Ju took the lead and raised his glass. "Come, brother Xiaochen. Since it's the first time we've met, let's get drunk. The wine in Di Zun Lu is quite good." "That's right. For some people, even the soil in the Sovereign Tower smells good," Xiao Xiao said with a smile. Dao Ju's pursuit of Di Zun Lu's courtesan was no secret to Xiao Xiao and the other young Heaven's Prides. With Dao Ju's status and talent, he could have any woman he wanted. He could have many of them come to his door with a flick of his finger. However, this guy just had to be infatuated with Di Zun Lu's courtesan. It was simply unfathomable. Hearing Xiao Zhao's words, Dao Ju shouted angrily, "Xiao Xiao, if you mention this again, I won't let you off." Facing Dao Ju, Xiao Chen couldn't help but burst into laughter. Seeing this, Dao Ju looked at Xiao Chen as if she had been wronged and said, "Brother Xiao Chen, even you. Sigh, forget it. It seems that no one in this world can touch me. Do you know what it means to only pick one out of thousands?" As she spoke, Dao Ju pretended to be lonely and drank the wine in her cup. After interacting with Dao Ju for a while, Xiao Chen gradually realized that Dao Ju's personality was actually quite good. Although she was a little arrogant and could even be said to be a little arrogant, at least she treated her friends very well. She was also very sincere and there was nothing fake about her. In fact, Dao Ju's personality was very simple. If she liked someone, then they were friends. Friends naturally treated each other with sincerity. If she didn't like someone, then she naturally didn't need to care about them. In essence, Dao Ju was a very sincere person. However, there were very few people who could catch Dao Ju's attention. Therefore, over time, she created a kind of arrogance in the world, as if she didn't put anyone in her eyes. After 3 rounds of drinking with Saber Jew, this guy had set a special rule. That was, no one was allowed to use spiritual power to dissolve the alcohol. Otherwise, even if they drank until the end of time, they wouldn't get drunk. What was the point? No one used spiritual energy. As a result, everyone's faces were naturally red, a sign that they were drunk. At this time, Dao Ju casually asked Xiao Chen, "Brother Xiao Chen, why did you come to Emperor City? Don't tell me you're here to have fun?" The reason Dao Ju came to Emperor City was very simple. It was because she was the most popular courtesan in Emperor Tower. Moreover, Dao Ju would come to Emperor City every once in a while. This had almost become a habit for Dao Ju. In the face of Dao Ju's inquiry, Xiao Chen didn't hide anything. As he drank, he answered truthfully, "I'm going to Heavenly Policy Palace. I just happened to pass by Emperor City." Xiao Chen's destination was indeed the Heavenly Policy Hall. Hearing this, Dao Ju's interest was instantly piqued. Is it because of the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm? The Heavenly Policy Secret Realm opened once every 50 years. This wasn't a secret in the Great Thousand World. Moreover, due to the uniqueness of Heavenly Policy Palace, every time the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm opened, it was a golden age for the cultivators of the Great Thousand World. This was because when the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm opened, not only could the people of Heavenly Policy Palace enter, but those who passed the Heavenly Policy Palace's assessment could also enter. Even if you didn't have any background, as long as you passed the Heavenly Policy Palace's assessment, you would also have the opportunity to enter the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm. Because of this, every time the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm opened, it would attract a large number of cultivators. Everyone wanted to try their luck. If they could successfully enter Heavenly Policy Palace or enter the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm, it could be said to be a great opportunity. Dao Ju guessed that it was the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm the moment he spoke. Hearing this, Xiao Chen nodded. That's right. The Heavenly Policy Secret Realm wasn't a secret, and Xiao Chen naturally didn't have any intention of hiding it. However, Dao Ju immediately said, "Since that's the case, why don't I come along? Anyway, I have nothing to do." When he heard that Xiao Chen and Xiao Xiao were going to Heavenly Policy Palace, Dao Ju volunteered to go with them. He came to Emperor City to play and didn't have much to do in Emperor City. Since it was rare to meet Xiao Chen and Xiao Xiao, Dao Ju naturally wanted to go with them. Moreover, to be honest, Dao Ju hadn't entered the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm before, so he was a little curious. As the young sect leader of the Saber sect, Dao Ju naturally didn't need to enter the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm. After all, there were cultivation secret realms in the Saber sect that were comparable to the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm. Therefore, Dao Ju didn't need to go to the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm to cultivate. However, everyone had a curious heart, and Dao Ju was naturally interested in the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm as well. After hearing Dao Ju's words, Xiao Chen looked at Xiao Xiao, clearly wanting her to make the decision. Xiao Xiao laughed and scolded, "If you want to go, then go. In any case, the Heavenly Policy Palace isn't my place. It would be embarrassing if you can't enter the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm." "Haha, you can rest assured. What kind of relationship do you have with Uncle Li? If I want to enter the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm, he will definitely agree." Dao Ju laughed heartily. As for the Uncle Li he mentioned, it was naturally the Heavenly Policy Palace's palace master, Li Xiao. Dao Ju's father had a good personal relationship with Li Xiao, so Dao Ju also called Li Xiao Uncle Li since he was young. Seeing Dao Ju's smug appearance, Xiao Xiao shook her head and smiled. This guy was really hopeless. Look at him. He didn't look like a genius at all. He was just a street hoodlum. Saber Ju's current actions were indeed somewhat indecent. His entire person was sitting cross-legged on the chair in a proper posture. He was even leaning lazily against the chair. He looked exactly like a local ruffian. However, Dao Ju didn't care about this at all. Moreover, those who were familiar with Dao Ju knew that Dao Ju hated those mortal etiquette the most. He had been like this since he was young. Because of this, Dao Ju had been taught a lesson by his father many times. However, there was nothing he could do. No matter what others did, Dao Ju did things his own way. He didn't care about what others said. A cheerful smile always hung on his face. This kind of Dao Ju was indeed liked by Xiaochen. At least, he gave people a very comfortable feeling when they were together. Chapter 2078. Xiaochen chatted happily with Dao Ju. After 3 rounds of wine, Dao Ju and Xiaochen seemed to be friends who had known each other for a long time. They spoke to each other without any hesitation. Xiaochen and the saber master chatted happily. After 3 rounds of drinking, Xiaochen and the saber master seemed to be friends who had known each other for a long time. They talked to each other without any hesitation. They drank until late at night. In the end, Xiaochen, accompanied by Xiao Xiao, and Dao Ju, accompanied by 3 experts from the saber sect, left separately. However, when they left the Dizun restaurant, Dao Ju, who was a little drunk, looked at Xiaochen and said, "Brother Xiaochen, I will come and find you tomorrow." He didn't forget that they had agreed to go to the Heavenly Policy Palace together. When he heard Dao Ju's words, Xiaochen nodded with a smile. When Xiaochen and Xiao Xiao returned to the inn, Jun Wuya and Luo Xing had already returned. When they saw Xiaochen's drunk appearance, Jun Wuya smiled and said, "This Dao Ju is really different from his old man." He didn't ask anything, but Jun Wuya obviously knew what had happened today. Moreover, from Jun Wuya's attitude, it seemed that he didn't object to Xiaochen interacting with Dao Ju. In fact, it was very easy for Xiaochen to not get drunk. However, he hadn't been drunk for a long time, so he was too lazy to use his spiritual power to dissolve the alcohol in his body. After exchanging a few words with Jun Wuya, Xiaochen returned to his room. Xiao Xiao stayed behind and told Jun Wuya and Luo Xing about what had happened today. Dao Ju's father could be said to be the sworn enemy of the heaven-breaking sword sovereign. One of them was the #1 sword sovereign in the Great Thousand World, while the other was the #1 saber sovereign. It could be said that they had been fighting for many years. However, although the two of them didn't get along, Jun Wuya had a good relationship with them. Of course, Jun Wuya was obviously closer to the heaven-breaking sword sovereign. However, he was also old acquaintances with Dao Ju's father. When he heard that Dao Ju was going to the Heavenly Policy Palace with Xiaochen, Jun Wuya laughed loudly. "Haha, this little hooligan. There is probably no place in the Great Thousand World that he doesn't dare to cause trouble. Since he wants to go, then let's go together." Jun Wuya didn't object to Dao Ju going together. Furthermore, with Dao Ju's personality, he was very clear that this little fellow was a devil incarnate. No matter where he went, he would cause trouble. At night, Xiaochen had already fallen into a deep sleep due to alcohol. At the same time, Dao Ju was the same. However, the End Realm expert of the Saber sect, who was right next to Dao Ju's residence, used a voice transmission talisman to inform the Saber sect of what had happened today. He also asked Dao Ju's father whether or not they should stop Dao Ju and Xiaochen from going to the Heavenly Policy Palace. After all, Dao Ju was the young sect master of the Saber sect. In terms of safety, they naturally couldn't be careless. If something happened to Dao Ju, needless to say, the entire Saber sect would go crazy. At this moment, who knew how many tens of thousands of miles away, on a barren mountain peak within the Saber sect, not a single blade of grass grew. It was as if there was some kind of power covering this place, making it difficult for any life to survive. At this moment, on the mountain peak, an extremely ordinary-looking middle-aged man wearing a black robe sat cross-legged on a praying mat. As the light of a voice transmission talisman entered his mind, the middle-aged man slowly opened his eyes. A hint of a smile flashed across his eyes. Heaven-breaking successor? Interesting. Old fellow, you and I have been fighting for our entire lives without a victor being decided. It seems like we can only let our juniors compete. The middle-aged man was Dao Ju's father, the current sect master of the Saber sect. People called him Zongtian Saber Venerable, Dao Xiong. The feeling he gave off was completely different from Dao Ju. Dao Xiong gave off an extremely old-fashioned and unkind impression. In truth, Dao Xiong's personality was indeed like that. He was extremely old-fashioned and followed the rules in everything he did. His father was old-fashioned, but his only son had jumped out of the world. He did things as he pleased. To be honest, Dao Xiong and Dao Ju were indeed a very strange combination. Perhaps it was because of the difference in personality between the father and son that caused them to quarrel non-stop whenever they met. This was because Dao Xiong could not stand Dao Ju's sloppy appearance. However, when he heard that Dao Ju wanted to go to the Heavenly Policy Mansion with Xiao Chen, Dao Xiong did not have any intention of stopping them. He was silent for a moment before replying. Yes, you may return to the Saber sect. It was a simple reply. Not only did he agree that Dao Ju would go to the Heavenly Policy Mansion with Xiao Chen, he even withdrew the 3 experts from the Saber sect who were by Dao Ju's side. Soon, the 3 of them who received Dao Xiong's reply revealed a strange expression. This time, Dao Xiong's reply was very straightforward. Moreover, he actually wanted the 3 of them to return. If that was the case, what about the safety of the young sect master? The 3 of them were worried about Dao Ju's safety. Hence, they sent another message to Dao Xiong. Sect master, if we leave, there will be no one to protect the young sect master. The 3 of them were very worried that something would happen to Dao Ju. However, Dao Xiong's reply was very short. With the sovereign emperor by her side, who in the great thousand world do you think can harm Ju? With Jun Wuya around, Dao Xiong was not worried about Dao Ju's safety at all. This was because if someone could kill her while she was by Jun Wuya's side, it was probably destined. No one would be able to save her. Dao Xiong made his decision. Early the next morning, the 3 experts from the Saber sect also informed Dao Ju that they were returning to the Saber sect. They asked Dao Ju to follow Xiao Chen to the Heavenly Policy Mansion alone. Dao Ju did not object to this. On the contrary, she was very supportive of it. Having no one by her side was something that Dao Ju loved the most. She immediately raised both her hands in agreement. After the 3 of them left, Dao Ju happily went to the courtyard where Xiao Chen was staying. Xiao Chen woke up very late because he was drunk yesterday. At this moment, Xiao Chen had just woken up and washed up. However, at this moment, Dao Ju had already rushed into the courtyard. She did not even knock on the courtyard door. Dao Ju did not care about such things. She did not even look at the people in the courtyard. She opened her mouth and shouted, "Brother Xiao Chen, haha. Let me tell you, that stubborn old man of mine probably didn't take his medicine yesterday. He actually agreed to it. Moreover, everyone has already left. Now this young master is free. This time, I will go to the Heavenly Policy Mansion and play to my heart's content. I heard that there are many beautiful female students in the Heavenly Policy Mansion." Dao Ju opened his mouth and shouted as he walked. However, Dao Ju had only taken a few steps when his gaze landed on the pavilion in the courtyard. At that moment, Dao Ju's voice came to an abrupt halt. His entire body was stunned on the spot. After which, he looked at the 2 figures in the courtyard and spoke somewhat guiltily. Senior Emperor. Senior Luoxing, you are here too. I'm here to look for Xiao Chen. Chapter 2079. After entering the courtyard, Dao Ju didn't see Xiao Chen, but instead saw Jun Wuya and Luo Xing. Thinking of how he had spoken so bluntly in front of 2 emperors, even Dao Ju felt a little guilty. After all, Jun Wuya and Luo Xing were existences on the same level as his father, Dao Xiong. He smiled a little embarrassedly. Hearing this, Jun Wuya didn't have any intention of blaming him. He smiled faintly and said, "You little rascal, you're still the same as before. Impudent." Jun Wuya had seen Dao Ju when he was young. Moreover, Jun Wuya didn't have much dislike for Dao Ju. Now that he saw Dao Ju again, he found that this brat hadn't changed at all. Jun Wuya also laughed and scolded him. Faced with Jun Wuya's laughter and scolding, Dao Ju could only smile bitterly and say nothing. Fortunately, at this time, Xiao Qin also washed up and came to the courtyard. When he saw Xiao Qin, Dao Ju instantly acted as if he had seen a family member. He strode over and said, "Brother Xiao Qin, you're finally here. Why didn't you tell me that Senior Emperor and Senior Luo Xing were also here?" Dao Ju naturally didn't know of Jun Wuya and Luo Xing's existence. When they were drinking yesterday, Xiao Qin didn't say anything. He always thought that Xiao Qin came to Emperor City with Luo Xing. Who would have thought that Jun Wuya and Luo Xing would also be here? Hearing Dao Ju's words, Xiao Qin felt a little strange and said, "You didn't ask me." Dao Ju indeed didn't ask. Faced with Xiao Qin's answer, Dao Ju helplessly rolled her eyes at Xiao Qin. Then, the two of them went to the pavilion and sat down with Jun Wuya and Luo Xing to chat while waiting for Xiao Qin. At first, when he sat with Jun Wuya and Luo Xing, Dao Ju was indeed a little restrained, but with his character, he soon relaxed. After all, since he was young, Dao Ju had come into contact with many Emperor Realm Masters, so he was not too nervous when facing Emperor Realm Masters like Jun Wuya and Luo Xing. They once again became talkative. While the four of them were chatting, Xiao Xiao had also finished washing up and arrived at the courtyard. Everyone was prepared to head to the Heavenly Policy Mansion. There was a teleportation talisman array that led directly to the Heavenly Policy Mansion in the City of Emperors. After using the teleportation talisman array, the group quickly arrived at the Heavenly Policy Mansion. The Heavenly Policy Mansion was actually no different from a city, but most of the people who lived here were the Heavenly Policy Mansion's students. The entire Heavenly Policy Mansion was divided into two parts, the inner city and the outer city. There were no restrictions in the outer city, so cultivators from all over the world could enter. However, only the Heavenly Policy Mansion's students could enter the inner city. It was the core area of the Heavenly Policy Mansion. There was less than half a month before the opening of the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm. Therefore, during this period of time, the Heavenly Policy Mansion was definitely the liveliest. Cultivators from all over the world had rushed to the Heavenly Policy Mansion, hoping to enter the Heavenly Policy Mansion and become a Heavenly Policy Mansion student. Every time the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm opened, the Heavenly Policy Mansion would recruit new students. This had already become a tradition of the Heavenly Policy Mansion. Of course, the purpose of Xiao Qin and the others' trip this time wasn't to enter the Heavenly Policy Mansion, but to enter the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm. In this way, they naturally didn't have to wait for the Heavenly Policy Mansion's assessment like the others. After arriving at the Heavenly Policy Mansion, Jun Wuya and Luo Xing no longer concealed their identities. As soon as they walked out of the teleportation talisman array, a shocking aura instantly soared from Jun Wuya's body. Although this aura didn't have any oppressive force, it made everyone present feel that it was unparalleled. Jun Wuya took the initiative to reveal his aura. Sensing this, the crowd around the teleportation talisman array shifted their gaze to Jun Wuya and the others. At the same time, a Heavenly Policy Mansion's deacon immediately came before Jun Wuya and bowed respectfully to Jun Wuya. May I ask, with this deacon's cultivation and status, he naturally wasn't qualified to come into contact with people at the level of Jun Wuya and Luo Xing. Therefore, he didn't know their identities. However, Jun Wuya replied indifferently, "I'm Jun Wuya." Jun Wuya? Upon hearing this, the Heavenly Policy Mansion's deacon was taken aback. For a moment, his back couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Jun Wuya, the Sovereign Emperor, the current Patriarch of the Sword Sect, the #1 powerhouse in the Great Thousand World. He didn't expect the old man standing before him to be Jun Wuya. He couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. However, at this moment, Li Zhao's figure appeared out of thin air. Then, he said to the deacon indifferently, "There's nothing for you to do here. You may leave." Jun Wuya's personal appearance in the Heavenly Policy Mansion naturally wasn't something that a mere deacon could handle. Therefore, after sensing Jun Wuya's aura, Li Xiao immediately rushed over. Upon hearing Li Zhao's words, the deacon responded respectfully and turned around to leave. Looking at Jun Wuya and Luo Xing in front of him, Li Xiao wasn't too surprised. This was because when they were in the sword sect, Jun Wuya had already said that he would bring Xiao Chen to the Heavenly Policy Mansion. However, when he saw Dao Ju, Li Xiao was slightly taken aback and said, "You brat, you're here too?" In response, Dao Ju said with a heartless smile, "Uncle Li, I also want to enter the Heavenly Policy secret realm." Obviously, he wasn't unfamiliar with Li Xiao. Upon hearing this, Li Xiao ignored him and looked at Jun Wuya again. "Let's go." After saying that, the group directly went to the inner city. They didn't stay in the outer city for too long. Even so, the news of Jun Wuya and Luo Xing's appearance in the Heavenly Policy Mansion spread quickly. 2 emperors appeared in the Heavenly Policy Mansion at the same time. At the same time, the identities of Xiao Chen, Xiao Xiao, and Dao Ju were quickly recognized by the crowd. With so many big shots arriving at the Heavenly Policy Mansion, the already lively Heavenly Policy Mansion was like adding oil to the fire, causing everyone to be extremely excited. The crowd didn't know the purpose of Jun Wuya and the others' visit to the Heavenly Policy Mansion, but this didn't stop them from becoming more and more excited. 3 emperors had gathered in the Heavenly Policy Mansion. There was also the Sword Sect's sect master, Xiao Chen, the Moon Palace's holy maiden, Xiao Xiao, and the Saber Sect's young sect master, Dao Ju. If they could get to know these big shots, wouldn't they be able to soar to the sky? Almost everyone had the idea of getting to know Xiao Chen and the others. Unfortunately, this idea was somewhat unrealistic. This was because Xiao Chen and the others had already arrived at Li Zhao's cave mansion. Ordinary people wouldn't have the chance to come in contact with them. In the cave mansion's front hall, Li Xiao looked at Jun Wuya and Luo Xing in front of him. Li Zhao's attitude towards Luo Xing was very gentle. He looked at Luo Xing with a smile on his face. "Luo Xing, why didn't you inform me in advance that you were coming?" Li Zhao's attitude towards Luo Xing was very gentle. However, Luo Xing only replied indifferently, "I came with Wuya." Chapter 2080. Luo Xing was not attracted to Li Xiao at all. Upon hearing Luo Xing's words, Li Zhao's gaze landed on Jun Wuya. At the same time, his tone turned cold. Luo Xing was not attracted to Li Xiao at all. Upon hearing Luo Xing's words, Li Zhao's gaze landed on Jun Wuya. At the same time, his tone turned cold. "What if I disagree?" Li Xiao did not agree to let Xiao Chen enter the Heavenly Policy secret realm. Upon hearing this, Jun Wuya smiled faintly and said, "You won't." Although Li Zhao's attitude towards Jun Wuya was very cold because of Luo Xing, Jun Wuya knew Li Zhao's character very well. He would not stop Xiao Chen from entering the Heavenly Policy secret realm because of this. Jun Wuya was absolutely confident that Li Xiao would not refuse. In response, Li Xiao smiled bitterly and said, "You old man. Fine, I agree. However, Xiao Chen wants to take part in the assessment and enter the Heavenly Policy secret realm through the official process. Is that okay?" "Of course." Hearing this, Jun Wuya nodded happily. Letting Xiao Chen take part in the assessment and enter the Heavenly Policy secret realm through the official process was not an unreasonable request. To put it bluntly, with Xiao Chen's strength, this so-called assessment was just a formality. After all, there were not many people in the younger generation who could compete with Xiao Chen. Jun Wuya did not have any objections. Naturally, Xiao Chen did not have any objections. However, at this time, Dao Ju at the side said, "Uncle Li, I want to take part in the assessment too." Dao Ju wanted to take part in the assessment too. Naturally, he wanted to have some fun. Upon hearing this, Li Xiao glared at Dao Ju and said, "Nonsense. Do you have nothing better to do? Aren't you afraid that your father will teach you a lesson again?" My father agreed. Hearing this, Dao Ju said with dissatisfaction. Whenever his father was mentioned, Saber Ju would feel very unhappy. That was because his old man was simply a stubborn old man. He would beat him up at the slightest provocation. Dao Xiong agreed to Dao Ju coming to the Heavenly Policy Mansion. Hearing this, Li Xiao said unhappily, "Up to you." Since Dao Xiong had already agreed, Li Xiao naturally wouldn't say anything more. Moreover, this assessment was a little special, so it was a good thing to let Xiao Chen and Dao Ju join. The assessment of the Heavenly Policy Mansion wasn't always the same. It could even be said that the assessment of the Heavenly Policy Mansion's recruitment was different every time. It wasn't as simple as the arena battle. The test set by the Heavenly Policy Mansion this time around was actually quite difficult. Thus, having Xiao Chen and Dao Ju participate in it could be said to be an additional layer of insurance. After all, the two of them were not weak. Someone will publicly announce the assessment tomorrow. At that time, you can directly go to the main hall in the outer city. Li Xiao didn't tell Xiao Chen and the others about the contents of the assessment. He only told them to go to the main hall in the outer city by themselves tomorrow. Xiao Chen and the others didn't have any objections to this. Afterwards, Jun Wuya and Luo Xing were arranged to stay in the inner city of the Heavenly Policy Mansion by Li Xiao. As for Xiao Chen and the others, they were sent to the outer city to prepare for the assessment tomorrow. In the outer city, Dao Ju, Xiao Chen and Xiao Xiao were arranged to stay in a separate courtyard. At the same time, in the inner city, Jun Wuya, Xiao Xiao and Li Xiao gathered together and looked at Jun Wuya. Li Xiao said seriously, "With Xiao Chen, Dao Ju and Xiao Xiao joining in, I plan to change the assessment this time around." Li Xiao took the initiative to talk to Jun Wuya and Xiao Xiao about the assessment. Hearing this, Jun Wuya took a sip of tea and said softly, "What do you plan to do? Do you still remember the Dark Ghost Clan?" Li Xiao said indifferently when he heard Jun Wuya's words. Jun Wuya and Luo Xing's expressions changed slightly when they heard Li Xiao mention the Dark Ghost Clan. To many of the younger generation cultivators in the Great Thousand World, the Dark Ghost Clan might sound unfamiliar. Many of them had probably never even heard of it. However, to the powerhouses of the older generation, the Dark Ghost Clan was definitely not unfamiliar. It could even be said that they were very familiar with it. This was because the Dark Ghost Clan had almost brought a huge disaster to the Heavenly Policy Mansion in the past. Back then, the Dark Ghost Clan intended to destroy the Heavenly Policy Mansion. They openly challenged the Heavenly Policy Mansion, one of the 10 great Ling Tian sects, and they almost succeeded. However, in the end, they were still one step behind and were defeated by the Heavenly Policy Mansion. After the defeat, Li Xiao led a group of powerhouses from the Heavenly Policy Mansion and naturally would not let the Dark Ghost Clan off easily. They pursued the Dark Ghost Clan all the way and killed almost all of the powerhouses in the Dark Ghost Clan. In the end, the Dark Ghost Clan fled to a small world called the Forest Boundary. Moreover, the ancestor of the Dark Ghost Clan was also an emperor-level figure. After being defeated by the Heavenly Policy Mansion, he knew that the Heavenly Policy Mansion would definitely not let the Dark Ghost Clan off. Therefore, after most of the masters of the Dark Ghost Clan fled to the Forest Boundary, he did not hesitate to use his life as the price to break the space-time passage between the Forest Boundary and the Great Thousand World. In this way, he also completely cut off the communication between the Forest Boundary and the Great Thousand World. He used his life as the price to break the space-time passage between the Forest Boundary and the Great Thousand World. Because of this, he could be considered to have preserved the last bit of bloodline of the Dark Ghost Clan and was not completely destroyed. However, Li Xiao and the Heavenly Policy Mansion had never given up on eliminating the Dark Ghost Clan. After so many years, there was almost no Dark Ghost Clan left in the Great Thousand World. However, the Dark Ghost Clan still existed in the forest boundary. Therefore, over the years, the Heavenly Policy Mansion had been trying to open up the spacetime passage between the forest boundary and the Great Thousand World. After so many years, they finally succeeded in opening up a part of the spacetime passage. However, the spacetime passage was not stable. Therefore, it could not withstand too strong of a spiritual energy fluctuation. After testing, it could only allow a Dao realm martial artist to pass through. However, he recalled that the Yin Ghost tribe had been completely defeated back then and there were no experts in the tribe. Therefore, Li Xiao's mission for the assessment of the Sky Policy Mansion this time was to head to the forest boundary and exterminate the Yin Ghost tribe. This was the assessment of the Heavenly Policy Mansion. Of course, as a precaution, the Dao realm powerhouses and the first disciple of the Heavenly Policy Mansion would go together. Now that they had the help of Shao Qin, Dao Ju and Xiao Xiao, they were naturally more reliable. Destroying the Dark Ghost Clan was not only something that the Heavenly Policy Mansion had not given up on for so many years. It had also become the assessment of the Heavenly Policy Mansion this time. When the time came, the person who killed the most Dark Ghost Clan martial artists would pass the assessment. After knowing the content of the assessment from Li Xiao, Jun Wuya said faintly, "Do you have to be so ruthless? Humph, how many people in the Heavenly Policy Mansion died in the hands of the Dark Ghost Clan? How can I let them go now? If I don't destroy the Dark Ghost Clan, how can I answer to those who died in the battle back then?" Li Xiao said faintly. "You didn't intend to let the three of them participate in the assessment. It's just a layer of insurance," Jun Wuya scolded with a smile. "Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 2081. Jun Wuya saw through Li Xiao's thoughts at a glance, and Li Xiao admitted calmly, "Of course we have to pay a price if we want to borrow the Heavenly Policy secret realm." Li Xiao paused for a moment and took a sip of tea before continuing, "Moreover, that kid's sword body should have reached the limit of the small success realm. With the help of the Heavenly Policy secret realm, he might be able to break through to the Great Success realm." In the Great Thousand World, cultivators had different levels of mastery of special physique. For example, Xiao Chen's mastery of the sword body was at the peak of the small success realm, and he was only one step away from breaking through to the Great Success realm. When he heard Li Xiao's words, Jun Wuya smiled and shook his head. "What a cunning old fox! Forget it. Since I want to borrow your Heavenly Book secret realm, I naturally have to put in some effort. Let these three little fellows make a trip to the wood world. In any case, with their strength, there shouldn't be any danger." Shao Chun and the other two were now at the beginning of the Dao realm. In addition, their combat strength could be said to be invincible in the Dao realm. There shouldn't be any danger in going to a small thousand world like the wood world. After all, Dao realm experts basically didn't exist in ordinary small thousand worlds. Currently, there weren't many known small thousand worlds that had Dao realm or End realm experts, and the wood world was obviously not one of them. Jun Wuya didn't reject Li Xiao, and Li Xiao seemed to have expected this. He smiled and didn't say anything else. After a silent night, early the next morning, Xiao Chen and the other two had just finished cultivating when they welcomed a guest. He was a young man. He wasn't handsome, but he gave off a scholarly feeling. Xiao Chen wasn't familiar with this young man, but Dao Ju and Xiao Xiao obviously knew him. His name was Li Chun, and he was Li Xiao's disciple. At the same time, he was also the number one disciple of the Heavenly Policy Mansion, the young mansion master. Like Dao Ju and Xiao Xiao, he was one of the geniuses of the Great Thousand World. Li Chun took the initiative to visit, and Dao Ju said unhappily, "What is a bookworm like you doing here? Dao Ju's personality and Li Chun's personality could be said to be poles apart. Dao Ju was definitely the kind of person who couldn't stand loneliness, while Li Chun, who was always very quiet and rarely spoke. Therefore, there wasn't a good relationship between the two. Sword. Xiao. 2. After exchanging a few pleasantries, the four of them came to the pavilion in the courtyard and sat down. Li Chun did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. This time, the Heavenly Policy Mansion's assessment is to go to the Wood World to destroy the remaining members of the Dark Ghost Clan. The three of you will go together, so there's more protection. Of course, after this matter is over, the Heavenly Policy Mansion will naturally allow the three of you to enter the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm. Li Chun said very simply that they had to help the Heavenly Policy Mansion destroy the remaining members of the Dark Ghost Clan so that they could enter the Heavenly Maze. Xiao Chun didn't have any objections to this. After all, if they wanted to enter the Heavenly Policy Mansion's cultivation secret realm, it would be unreasonable if they didn't put in some effort. Xiao Chun readily nodded in agreement. Dao Ju, on the other hand, said somewhat unhappily, I was wondering why the Heavenly Policy Mansion was so insistent on capturing the Dark Ghost Clan. Back then, the Dark Ghost Clan was directly crippled by you. Now that they have fled to the Wood World, the Heavenly Policy Mansion still doesn't intend to let them go? Dao Ju had heard a little about the Dark Ghost Clan and the Heavenly Policy Mansion from his father. When he heard Dao Ju's words, Li Chun said indifferently, This is the Heavenly Policy Mansion's matter. As for the three of you, this can be considered a trade. It's the exchange for entering the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm. Li Chun's words were very direct. He had already stated that this was a trade. If they wanted to enter the Heavenly Policy Secret Realm, they had to do so. Dao Ju curled his lips in response. However, he quickly agreed. As a result, the three of them didn't have any objections and agreed to go to the Wood World with Li Chun. When the three of them nodded in agreement, Li Chun also explained the general situation of the Wood World to the three of them. When they heard that the space-time tunnel in the Wood World could only allow Dao Realm experts to pass through, the three of them didn't say much. After settling the matter and understanding the general situation of the Wood World, Xiao Chun and the other two quickly arrived at the teleportation array in the outer city under Li Chun's lead. Everyone left through the teleportation array. When the time came, they directly went to the entrance of the Wood World. There were already experts from the Heavenly Policy Mansion waiting there. When Xiao Chun and the other three arrived outside the teleportation array, there were already close to 10,000 cultivators who were participating in the Heavenly Policy Mansion's assessment waiting there. These people had already gone through the first selection and successfully stood out. Whether it was in terms of talent or combat strength, they were clearly extraordinary. Of course, there was still a huge gap between them and Xiao Chun and the other three. The two of them weren't on the same level at all. Everyone already knew the content of this assessment and also knew that they were about to head to the Wood World. However, before they set off, the Wood World elder in charge of this assessment said in a clear voice, "The main purpose of this trip to the Wood World is to assess you. However, just in case, my Heavenly Policy Mansion has invited 4 geniuses to accompany you. They are the Sword Sect's Sect Master Xiao Chun, the Saber Sect's young Sect Master Dao Ju, the Moon Palace's Saintess Xiao Xiao, and my Heavenly Policy Mansion's young Master Li Chun." The 4 geniuses followed together. Hearing this, everyone present couldn't help but become excited. Looking at Xiao Chun and the other 3 who appeared on the high platform, many cultivators present revealed looks of admiration. With the 4 demon-level geniuses moving together, the crowd's uneasiness was quickly quelled. After all, with Xiao Chun and the other 3, even if there was an End Realm expert in the Wood World, they would be able to fight. As such, everyone naturally had nothing to worry about. Without saying any more nonsense, under the orders of the Heavenly Policy Mansion's elders, everyone quickly entered the teleportation formation and disappeared. With so many people participating in the assessment, seeing everyone enter the teleportation formation one by one, Xiao Chun and the other three remained calm. After everyone left through the teleportation formation, the four of them entered the teleportation formation and left together. The teleportation formation led directly to the entrance of the wood world. There were already experts from the Heavenly Policy Mansion waiting there, and everything was already prepared. Many cultivators boarded the spaceship one after another. As for Xiao Chun and the other three, they had their own spaceship and didn't need to squeeze with the others. There were a total of 10 spaceships. After everyone successfully boarded the spaceship, the 10 spaceships calmly entered the space-time tunnel that led to the wood world. The space-time tunnel of the wood world was very special. As it wasn't completely stable, it was very bumpy along the way. However, this didn't last for long. After just one day, everyone successfully arrived at the wood world. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2082. After they entered the wood realm, Xiao Chen's group of 4 took the lead and led everyone into the depths of the wood realm. After they entered the wood realm, Xiao Chen's group of 4 took the lead and led everyone into the depths of the wood realm. There were many small and independent worlds around the vast thousand world. They also had heavenly Tao laws, similar to the wood realm and the 8 desolates world. These small worlds were called minor thousand worlds. The vast thousand world could be said to be the center of countless worlds. Any minor thousand world that wanted to connect to each other had to pass through the vast thousand world. This naturally led to the prosperity of the vast thousand world. However, compared to other minor thousand worlds, the wood realm was clearly more special. Just like the 8 desolates world, the wood realm had been in a completely sealed state for countless years. It had no connection with the vast thousand world and other minor thousand worlds. This also caused many cultivators in the wood realm to be unaware of how big the outside world was. Along the way, they had just entered the wood dimension. At this moment, the most important task for everyone was to find the Ghost tribe. Although the wood dimension wasn't big, because it was their first time here, they didn't know the specific situation of the wood dimension. However, just as Xiao Chen's group of 4 planned to find a continent to understand the situation of the wood realm, over a dozen starships suddenly appeared in front of them without any warning. Moreover, as soon as they appeared, they blocked their path and completely surrounded them. Due to the sudden change, Xiao Chen's group of 4 quickly arrived on the deck. At the same time, many cultivators from the more than 10 spaceships flew out from the spaceship. "Did we encounter starship pirates?" Dao Ju said helplessly when he saw the numerous cultivators surrounding him. Everyone was no stranger to starship pirates. In the endless starry sky, some independent cultivators would gather together and make a living by plundering starships passing by. Such organizations were called starship pirates. However, the various large sects had always looked down on starship pirates. They always felt that starship pirates were a motley crew that only knew how to do some shady business. They did not expect to encounter galactic pirates the moment they entered the wood realm. Furthermore, there were quite a few of them. Judging from the number of people, this should be a group of powerful galactic pirates. Just as Dao Ju finished speaking, a burly man with a scar on his face strode out from the crowd of space pirates. There were many people following closely behind him. From the looks of it, he should be the leader of this group of space pirates. As soon as the scar-faced man appeared, his gaze locked onto Xiao Chen's group of 4. Because Xiao Chen's group's starship was the closest to the front, it naturally meant that they were the ones in charge. His gaze swept across Xiao Chen and the other 3. The cultivation of the scar-faced man was only at the beginning of the immortal Emperor realm. In the wood world, it might be considered good, but in the Great Thousand world, it was nothing. Unfortunately, this scar-faced man clearly did not know who he had offended. He was even more unable to see through the cultivation of Shao Chen and the other three. A cold smile flashed in his eyes as he spoke in an extremely arrogant manner. New faces. Unfortunately, your luck is not good. Hand over the money to save your lives. Hand over all your storage rings. Having never seen Shao Chen's group before, Shao Chen and the other three were secretly amused when they heard this. An immortal Emperor Realm cultivator actually dared to rob them. Wei Wei, is there anyone who can come out and deal with this? Do we have to deal with such a small matter personally? Dao Ju even stretched his neck and shouted. Facing a group of galactic pirates, Shao Chen and the other three were not even interested in dealing with them. This group of people was simply too weak. Upon hearing Dao Ju's words, thousands of people immediately flew out from the starships behind them. These people were all participants of the Heavenly Policy Mansion's assessment. The weakest of them was at the Immortal Emperor Realm, while the stronger ones were at the Immortal Emperor Realm. Therefore, they were not afraid of this group of galactic pirates at all. Without waiting for Shao Chen and the other three to speak, everyone had already charged towards the galactic pirate. Faced with the onslaught of the crowd, the scar-faced man still had a sneer on his face at first, but soon the smile on his face froze. The reason for that was because the scarred man discovered that the cultivation of this group of people was simply monstrous to the extreme. Just the number of immortal emperors alone amounted to over 100. Among the thousands of people, there were more than 100 immortal emperors, while the rest were at the Immortal Emperor Realm. This kind of strength was clearly beyond the scarred man's expectations. Furthermore, in just one exchange, the seemingly large number of space pirates were like paper tigers that were broken with a single poke. They didn't even have the strength to fight back. They were completely defeated. The scarred man was stunned on the spot when he saw this scene. He felt a chill in his heart. He had no idea where this group of powerful people came from. Was there such a powerful force in the wood world? He was terrified. At the same time, he was shocked by the strength of Shao Chen and the others. However, before the scar-faced man could escape, Li Chun, who was on the starship, said to an elder of the Heavenly Policy Mansion, "Go and capture the leader. Keep him alive." The appearance of the scar-faced man just happened to let Li Chun know the location of the Een Ghost clan. Upon hearing this, the elder of the Heavenly Policy Mansion respectfully responded. Then, he took a step forward and disappeared from the spot in an instant. Just as he was about to turn around and flee, an old man appeared in front of the scarred man before he could do so. The old man looked at the scarred man and did not say anything. He gently extended his hand, and a terrifying pressure immediately spread out. The scar-faced man had never felt such power before. In front of the old man, the scar-faced man could not even muster the slightest intention to resist. It was as though the old man was the heavens and earth. There was no way to resist him. His eyes were filled with horror. The old man's strength had obviously exceeded the scar-faced man's understanding. He had never thought that such a person would exist in this world. Are you a human or a ghost? The scar-faced man muttered in horror as he looked at the old man. However, the old man did not seem to have any intention of paying attention to him. As an elder of the Heavenly Policy Mansion, the old man had the cultivation of the Tao realm. In his eyes, the scar-faced man, who was only at the Immortal Emperor realm, was simply too weak. He was no different from an ant. With a clench of his hand, the old man captured the scar-faced man effortlessly. After capturing the scar-faced man alive, the old man brought him back to the starship where Shao Chen and the others were. As for the other space pirates, they were quickly slaughtered under the attacks of the group. Some died while others fled. The two sides were not on the same level at all. The gap in strength was too big. Therefore, there was nothing to say about the outcome of this battle. There were no variables. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. End of this chapter. Chapter 2083. It could be said that the scar-faced man was seeking his own death. Although the group of space pirates gathered by the scar-faced man wasn't weak, they were nothing in front of Shao Qin and the other powerhouses of the Great Thousand World. The scar-faced man, who was only in the immortal Emperor realm, wasn't a match for Shao Qin and the others at all. After being captured alive by the Heavenly Policy Mansion's elder, he was brought before Shao Qin and the others without being able to resist at all. Facing Shao Qin and the others, the only thing left on the scar-faced man's face was fear. Before Li Chun could say anything, the scar-faced man was already begging for forgiveness. I was blind to not recognize Mount Tai. The scar-faced man kept begging for mercy, but Li Chun interrupted him. All right, I'll ask and you'll answer. Be honest if you want to live. Okay. The scar-faced man nodded repeatedly upon hearing Li Chun's words. The scar-faced man nodded repeatedly. Upon seeing this, Li Chun asked, Do you know about the Een Ghost race? Their only mission in the Wood World was to annihilate the Een Ghost race. They didn't care about anything else, so Li Chun went straight to the point. However, when the scar-faced man heard Li Chun mention the Een Ghost race, he seemed to have heard something terrifying. His expression changed and he was slightly taken aback. It wasn't until Li Chun spoke that he returned to his senses. What's wrong? You don't want to tell the truth? Li Chun said flatly. The scar-faced man nodded repeatedly. No, I know. The scar-faced man knew about the Een Ghost race. Upon seeing this, Li Chun continued to ask. Tell me everything you know. The Een Ghost race is the strongest force in the Wood World. There are countless powerhouses in the race and the Wood World is basically under the control of the Een Ghost race. The scarred man had heard a little about the Ghost Clan. Or perhaps it could be said that there was probably no one in the Wood Dimension who didn't know about the Ghost Clan. Because there wasn't a single power in the Wood Dimension that dared to offend the Ghost Clan. It could be said that the Ghost Clan was the well-deserved overlord of the Wood Dimension. It was even said that even the will of the heavenly way of the Wood Realm didn't dare to know about the Een Ghost Clan. Of course, what the scarred man knew was only on the surface. As for the core secrets of the Een Ghost Clan, the scarred man clearly didn't know. He told Li Chun everything he knew about the Ghost Clan. Hearing this, Li Chun nodded slightly and continued to ask, Where is the lair of the Ghost Clan? It's on the Ghost Continent. It's located at the very center of the Wood World. It's the largest and most prosperous continent in the Wood World. The scarred man didn't dare to hide anything. Li Chun asked several questions in succession. Although he did not know any real secrets, he had a basic understanding of the situation of the Een Ghost Clan. At least, he knew where the Een Ghost Clan's lair was. After getting the answer he wanted, Li Chun didn't say anything else. At the same time, the scarred man looked at Li Chun nervously. He knew that his life was now in Li Chun's hands. It was impossible for him to escape. If it was the elder of the Heavenly Policy Mansion, he wouldn't have been able to escape. The scarred man was most afraid of the elder of the Heavenly Policy Mansion. However, he didn't know that other than the elder of the Heavenly Policy Mansion, Shao Qin and the others could easily kill him. Although Li Chun was anxious, he wasn't interested in killing the scarred man. After pondering for a moment, he said indifferently, Let's go. Bring us to the Ghost Continent. Li Chun didn't care about the scarred man's life at all. In Li Chun's eyes, there was no point in killing an ant at the Celestial Emperor realm. The scarred man didn't dare to object when he heard that Li Chun wanted him to lead the way. He immediately nodded and agreed. After capturing the knife-scarred man alive, it didn't take long before the knife-scarred man saw that the pirates he led were killed and scattered in all directions. Moreover, only a few of them managed to escape. The scarred man had been running amok in the Wood World for so many years, but he had never seen such a powerful force. His subordinates were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered in front of Xiao Chen and the others. Seeing his men being slaughtered one by one, the fear in the scarred man's heart grew stronger. He did not dare to have any thoughts of disobedience. In the scarred man's view, Xiao Chen's group was simply a group of freaks. Each of them was unbelievably strong. After dealing with the scarred man's subordinates, the scarred man led Xiao Chen and the others to the ghost continent. Along the way, Li Chun asked the scarred man again, "How far is this place from the wood world? If we travel at full speed, we should be able to reach it in half a month," the scarred man replied respectfully. "Half a month?" Li Chun frowned slightly when he heard this. That was too long. However, the scarred man obviously didn't know that the Heavenly Policy Mansion's starship was completely different from the wood world's starship. They were not on the same level at all. In terms of speed, the Heavenly Policy Mansion's starship was at least several times faster than the wood world's starship. Therefore, the half a month mentioned by the scarred man was calculated based on the speed of the wood world's starship. It was incomparable to the speed of the Heavenly Policy Mansion's starship. "Let's go at full speed." Li Chun didn't say much. He turned to look at an elder of the Heavenly Policy Mansion and said. Following Li Chun's order, the 10 starships immediately shot out like sharp arrows. The speed stunned the scarred man. How could the starships be so fast? It was like space teleportation. The scarred man did not expect the speed of the starship to be so fast. He was extremely shocked. With the speed of the Heavenly Policy Mansion's starship, the journey that would have taken half a month was completed in less than a day. They had successfully appeared outside the dark ghost continent. Looking at the continent in front of him, the knife-scarred man felt like he was dreaming. In just one day, Xiao Chun and the others seemed to have opened the door to a whole new world for the knife-scarred man. All kinds of things that were beyond the knife-scarred man's knowledge made him feel extremely unreal. This is the ghost continent? Didn't you say that it would take half a month to reach it? In less than a day, they arrived at the ghost continent. Li Chun asked the scarred man suspiciously. His tone was a little cold. Seeing that Li Chun was doubting him, the scarred man couldn't say anything. He could only say with a sad face, "This is indeed the ghost continent. As for the time, I didn't know that the starships could be so fast." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2084. The scarred man was really speechless. Who would have thought that the Heavenly Policy Mansion's starship would be so fast? It was almost 10 times faster than the Wood Boundary's starship. As a result, the Wood Boundary's starship would take half a month to reach the ghost continent, but Xiao Chen's group arrived in less than a day. It wasn't strange at all. The scarred man was really speechless. Who would have thought that the Heavenly Policy Mansion's starship would be so fast? It was almost 10 times faster than the Wood Boundary's starship. As a result, the Wood Boundary's starship would take half a month to reach the ghost continent, but Xiao Chen's group arrived in less than a day. It wasn't strange at all. Seeing the scarred man's pitiful look, Li Chun didn't make things difficult for him. Looking at this guy's current appearance, he was probably really frightened. Seeing that Li Chun didn't seem to have any intention of continuing to pursue the matter, the scarred man mustered up his courage and asked, "Sir, why did you come to the ghost continent?" As the overlord of the Wood Boundary, the ghost clan had been in existence that no one dared to provoke for so many years. However, looking at Li Chun's group, it was obvious that they didn't come with good intentions. Hearing the scarred man's words, Li Chun's gaze fell on the ghost continent in front of him. He didn't even look at him and just said indifferently, "Exterminate the ghost clan." Of course, they didn't come here to play. Exterminating the ghost clan was their goal. It sounded like a simple matter from Li Chun's mouth, but it was like a clap of thunder in the scarred man's ears. Exterminate the ghost clan? No one in the Wood Boundary had ever dared to say such words. Facing the ghost clan that no one dared to provoke, but in Li Chun's mouth, exterminating them was as simple as eating and drinking. It was simply a trivial matter. The scar-faced man stared blankly at Li Chun, who had a natural expression on his face. He was speechless for a long time. At the same time, since they had already arrived at the ghost continent, the scar-faced man was naturally useless. Saber Jew, who was on the side, said in a bored tone, "Get lost." He had no intention of killing the knife-scarred man. After all, he was just a small fry who couldn't even enter the eyes of Dao Ju and the others. It made no difference whether he was killed or not. The Dao Ju allowed the scarred man to leave. Hearing this, the scarred man was immediately overjoyed. He did not care about the shock in his heart. After repeatedly thanking the Dao Ju, he immediately got up and flew off the starship. After letting the scarred man go, Dao Ju looked at Li Chun and smiled. "What do we do now? Do we just charge in?" "Yes, let's just kill our way in." Li Chun nodded. Li Chun, Dao Ju, Xiao Qin, and Xiao Xiao didn't care about the Yin Ghost clan at all. How powerful could a clan that was on the verge of extinction be? Therefore, there was no need for a plan to deal with the Yin Ghost clan. They just had to kill their way in. Upon hearing Li Chun's words, Dao Ju laughed heartily. "You're finally straightforward for once. I like it." It was rare for Li Chun to be so straightforward. Dao Ju smiled. Upon hearing this, Li Chun ignored him and gave the order to attack. Everyone immediately charged into the Yin Ghost continent. There was no need for them to worry about anything. Anyway, they only had one request, which was to annihilate the Yin Ghost clan. Following Li Chun's order, everyone quickly charged towards the Yin Ghost continent. Naturally, there were also people from the Yin Ghost clan who were in charge of monitoring and guarding the periphery of the Yin Ghost continent. After all, the Yin Ghost continent was the nest of the Yin Ghost clan. Just as they were about to charge into the Yin Ghost continent, the experts of the Yin Ghost clan appeared to stop them. A fierce battle immediately broke out between the two sides. However, just as Li Chun had expected, the Yin Ghost clan was indeed not as powerful as before. Therefore, the cultivators who were in charge of guarding the periphery of the Yin Ghost continent were not experts. The strongest among them was only at the Immortal Emperor realm. With only an Immortal Emperor realm expert as the leader, they naturally couldn't stop the crowd. As soon as they appeared, the leader of the Yin Ghost clan shouted in a deep voice, "Who are you?" As soon as his voice faded, he was answered by a ray of sharp sword light. An Immortal Emperor expert had struck out and killed the Immortal Emperor leader of the Yin Ghost clan. The death of their leader stunned the rest of the Yin Ghost clan, but at the same time, they had already charged forward. The number of Yin Ghost clan cultivators they killed was related to their results in the assessment. Whether they could enter the Heavenly Policy Palace or not depended on the number of Yin Ghost clan cultivators they killed. As a result, no one held back. Everyone was trying their best to kill as many Yin Ghost clan cultivators as possible. They were like a pack of hungry wolves. Very quickly, they broke through the Yin Ghost clan's blockade and killed all the Yin Ghost clan cultivators. Not a single one of them managed to escape. Naturally, it was impossible for the Yin Ghost clan cultivators to escape. Xiao Qin and the other three didn't attack. After all, they didn't need to join the Heavenly Policy Palace. Therefore, they didn't care how many Yin Ghost clan cultivators they killed. The four of them were more like insurance. Unless they encountered an enemy that was difficult to deal with, Xiao Qin and the other three wouldn't attack ordinary Yin Ghost clan cultivators. Still sitting in the spaceship, Xiao Qin and the other three followed behind the crowd and slowly entered the Yin Ghost continent. Xiao Qin and the other three had already gotten used to it. Only Dao Ju grumbled in boredom. Is the Yin Ghost clan so weak now? In the past, they were able to challenge your Heavenly Policy Palace. That was in the past. Now they're crippled, Li Chun said faintly when he heard Dao Ju's words. They successfully killed their way into the Ghost continent. Even though they met with some resistance, these resistance were nothing to the group. Just as everyone was slaughtering their way into the Ghost Continent, there was a sinister city right in the middle of the Ghost Continent. The city was completely black. Whether it was the buildings or the city walls, they were all made of black iron. Looking at it from afar, it gave off an extremely gloomy feeling. This was the headquarters of the Een Ghost clan, called Mu City. At this time, the gloomy Mu City was bustling with people. This was because today was the Een Ghost clan's memorial ceremony. This was the tradition of the Een Ghost clan. It would be held every year. Every year, the Een Ghost clan's memorial ceremony would be a big event in the entire Wood World. As long as the Wood World's top forces were ranked, they would come to participate. At this time, in the main square of Mu City, there was a hubbub of voices. The sect leaders and sect leaders of various forces stood respectfully. They were led by several elders of the Een Ghost clan. Under the leadership of the current clan leader, they were kowtowing to a huge black statue. This black statue looked like a middle-aged man, and this man was the old ancestor of the Een Ghost clan who had sacrificed himself to break the space-time passage between the Wood Realm and the Great Thousand World. He was a genuine Emperor Realm figure. He sacrificed himself in exchange for the Een Ghost clan's survival. Otherwise, the Een Ghost clan would have been completely wiped out by the Heavenly Policy Palace. Please collect, vote, recommend. End of this chapter. Chapter 2085. The battle with the Heavenly Policy Mansion back then had ended with the Dark Ghost Tribe's defeat. For this reason, the Dark Ghost Tribe had indeed paid a heavy price. If it was not for the old ancestor of the Dark Ghost Tribe sacrificing his life, the Dark Ghost Tribe would have ceased to exist long ago. The battle with the Heavenly Policy Mansion back then had ended with the Dark Ghost Tribe's defeat. For this reason, the Dark Ghost Tribe had indeed paid a heavy price. If it was not for the old ancestor of the Dark Ghost Tribe sacrificing his life, the Dark Ghost Tribe would have ceased to exist long ago. Therefore, after so many years, the Een Ghost clan still worshipped their old ancestor. Every year, they would hold a sacrificial ceremony to commemorate the old ancestor of the Een Ghost clan. Just like in the past, the Een Ghost clan was conducting the same sacrificial ceremony as in the past under the leadership of the current clan leader. However, they did not know that the calamity had already befallen the Een Ghost clan. Moreover, after so many years, the Heavenly Policy Palace's determination to annihilate the Een Ghost clan had not weakened at all. Outside the Een Ghost continent, everyone had successfully killed their way in. As none of the cultivators of the Een Ghost clan were able to escape, it was difficult for the news to spread. It was like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. In other words, the martial artists of the Een Ghost clan were the tickets to enter the Heavenly Policy Mansion in everyone's eyes. As long as they killed enough martial artists of the Een Ghost clan, they would have the opportunity to enter the Heavenly Policy Mansion and obtain better cultivation resources and environment. Along the way, Shao Chun and the other three hadn't made a move yet. This was mainly because the cultivators of the Een Ghost clan were too weak. There was no need for Shao Chun and the other three to make a move. The starship slowly flew into the Een Ghost continent. As the largest continent in the wood boundary, the Een Ghost continent was naturally not small. However, as soon as they arrived at the Een Ghost continent, Li Chun immediately asked everyone to disperse and kill the cultivators of the Een Ghost clan. He asked everyone to form their own groups and move freely. For a moment, the entire Een Ghost continent seemed to have become their hunting ground. Dao Ju said in a bored tone as he watched the crowd disperse. "Sai, why isn't there one or two experts in the Een Ghost clan?" Along the way, the strongest expert they had encountered was only at the immortal Emperor realm. Dao Ju didn't even have the slightest interest in killing them. Dao Ju was indeed bored. However, Li Chun didn't say anything. As for Shao Chun, he returned to his room to sleep. Originally, Shao Chun and the other two's mission was to protect the Een Ghost clan. Unless it was necessary, Xiao Chen and the others didn't need to make a move. The Een Ghost Clan's members of the Een Ghost Clan. A talisman formation that was beyond immortal grade. Talisman. Standing on the deck, Li Chun activated the talisman. In an instant, the entire Een Ghost continent was shrouded by the talisman, cutting off all contact with the outside world. Those outside couldn't enter, and those inside couldn't leave. After doing all this, Li Chun murmured softly, "Now, no one can escape." After cutting off the Een Ghost Clan's escape route, Li Chun and the others leisurely headed towards the central region of the Een Ghost continent. After walking for a short while, the group arrived at a place that looked like a spiritual vein mine. This was a spiritual vein that belonged to the Een Ghost tribe. The people who were in charge of mining the spiritual vein were the slaves who were forcefully captured by the Een Ghost tribe. As Xiao Chen's starship slowly landed, the Een Ghost Clan warriors who were in charge of guarding the spirit vein mine also showed up. The leader of this group was a Een Ghost Clan warrior who was in the Immortal Emperor realm. This spirit vein mine should be very important to the Een Ghost Clan. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a Immortal Emperor guarding it. The Immortal Emperor leading the group surrounded Xiao Chen and the other's spaceship and shouted in a deep voice, "Who are you?" This mountain range was the Een Ghost Clan's territory. Usually, outsiders were not allowed to enter. However, Li Chun, who was on the deck, didn't hesitate to point his finger at the leader and kill him with ease. Li Chun naturally did not hold back when he faced the experts from the Een Ghost tribe. He killed the leader with a single blow. After that, the two elders from the Heavenly Policy Mansion attacked together and quickly killed all the guards in the spirit vein mine. The sudden turn of events left the slaves imprisoned here dumbfounded. Only when Li Chun and his men landed in front of them did they regain their senses. Then, they knelt in front of Li Chun and thanked him loudly. These people were captured by the Een Ghost Clan from various places. Some of them were from sects that had been destroyed by the Een Ghost Clan. Some of them were disciples of big clans, and some of them were captured because they had offended the Een Ghost Clan. In short, these people were captured for various reasons. From then on, they were condemned to a life of eternal damnation. They lived in an abyss of suffering every day. In this place, not only did they have to do heavy labor, but they would also be beaten up from time to time. It could even be said that they were abused. The members of the Dark Ghost tribe clearly did not treat them as humans. In their dry and dull lives, they simply took pleasure in bringing them along. Many of them were disabled. Missing an arm or a leg was a common occurrence for these slaves. They thought that they wouldn't be able to leave the spirit vein for the rest of their lives. Who knew that Li Chun and the others would suddenly appear from the sky? After continuously thanking Li Chun and the others, an elderly man came up to Li Chun. He was the most senior of these slaves, and he stood in front of Li Chun with a stooped back. The elderly man emotionally said, "Thank you, sir, for saving us." This old man thanks sir on behalf of everyone. Li Chun and the others killed the guards of the Een Ghost Clan. The slaves were naturally grateful to Li Chun. In response, Li Chun said indifferently, "You don't have to thank me. I just did it in passing. Old man, I have some questions." "Please go ahead," the old man replied respectfully when he heard Lin Fan's words. Saving these slaves was not a big deal for Li Chun. However, Li Chun learned a lot about the secrets of the Een Ghost Clan from the old man. In other words, he learned about the situation of the Een Ghost Clan in recent years. While Li Chun was asking the old man about the Een Ghost Clan, Xiao Xiao pitted the slaves and asked the elders of the Heavenly Policy Mansion to give them some elixirs. These slaves had been tortured by the Een Ghost tribe for many years. Their bodies and minds could be said to have been greatly damaged. Xiao Xiao could not bear to see them suffer. Those who had received these medicinal pills were naturally extremely grateful to Xiao Xiao and the few elders of the Heavenly Policy Mansion. Chapter 2086. After destroying a spirit stone mine of the Ghost tribe and learning more about the situation of the Ghost tribe from the old man, Li Chun and the others left. As for the slaves, Xiao Xiao gave them some healing elixirs, gold coins, and spirit stones before letting them leave. Of course, it was impossible for them to bring the slaves along. However, they were considered free now. With the spiritual stones and gold coins that Xiao Xiao gave them, they should be able to live without any problems. They left in the starship. As for the spiritual stone load, Li Chun and the others were not interested in it at all because they were not short of money. This time, Li Chun's target was very clear. It was the Mu City. Li Chun had already learned about the Mu City from the elder. In the starship, Li Chun briefly explained the situation to Xiao Qin and the others. According to the elder, the Ghost tribe was indeed the overlord of the Ghost continent. Their headquarters was the Mu City. There were more than 10 spiritual stone loads like the one they had just seen on the Ghost continent. These spiritual stone loads were guarded by the experts of the Ghost tribe. At the same time, there were also a large number of slaves who were in charge of mining the spiritual stones for them. However, these spiritual stone loads were obviously not Li Chun's target. This was because the real experts of the Ghost tribe were concentrated in the Mu City. The Mu City was the true headquarters of the Ghost tribe. In addition to knowing about the Mu City, Li Chun also inquired about the current strength of the Ghost tribe. Of course, the elder did not know much. Most of what he knew was hearsay. According to the elder, the current clan leader of the Ghost tribe was called Fei. He was an expert who had surpassed the immortal emperor realm. He was also known as the strongest expert in the wood dimension. In addition to Fei, the Ghost tribe now had 8 elders whose cultivation was at the peak of the complete immortal emperor realm. This was the situation of the upper echelons of the Ghost tribe. As for the people below, Li Chun was not interested at all. He told Xiao Chen and the others everything he knew. Upon hearing this, Dao Ju was the first to speak. Her face was full of disappointment as she said, "The strongest is only at the comprehension state? The Ghost clan is too weak." The strongest Fei, the current patriarch of the Ghost clan, was only at the comprehension realm. Although the old man did not know Fei's exact cultivation level, he knew that Fei had surpassed the immortal emperor realm, which meant that he was at the comprehension realm. In the eyes of the wood world, Fei was considered an invincible expert. However, in the eyes of Dao Ju, Fei was just an ant. Upon hearing that the strongest expert of the Dark Ghost clan was only in the comprehension state, Dao Ju clearly lost interest. However, Xiao Chen said calmly, "Let me tell you something. That old man only knows what's on the surface. As for whether the Ghost clan has any hidden forces, I don't think he knows. Don't forget that the Ghost clan is said to be in contact with the will of the heavenly way. The Ghost clan and the will of the heavens had something to do with each other." This was what Li Chun had learned from the old man. However, the old man had only heard about it from others. As for the details, he didn't know. Li Chun nodded in agreement when he heard Xiao Qin mention the will of the heavenly way. Although the wood world was only a minor kiliacosm, and even among the minor kiliacosms, the will of the heavenly way, which ruled over a minor kiliacosm, should not be underestimated. Li Chun agreed with Xiao Qin, but Dao Ju said nonchalantly, "Tisk, what's there to be afraid of about the will of the heavenly way in a minor thousand world? If you don't behave, you'll get rid of it as well." Dao Ju was a serious person. Upon hearing his words, Xiao Qin and the other two chose to ignore him. After understanding the current situation of the Ghost clan, Xiao Qin and the others entered the Ghost continent. At this time, Fei, who was in the middle of a sacrificial ceremony in Mu City, finally received the news. He was in the middle of hosting the sacrificial ceremony. However, due to an unexpected incident, Fei and the 8 elders of the Ghost clan left together, leaving the sect leaders and sect masters to wait in the square. Not knowing what had happened, the sect leaders and sect masters were also confused. However, at this time, in the main hall of Mu City, Fei and the other higher-ups of the Ghost clan looked extremely gloomy. One of the elders looked at Fei and said, "Patriarch, there's no need to doubt it anymore. It must be the people from the Heavenly Policy Palace. After so many years, they still want to exterminate the Ghost clan. Now, many of our clansmen outside have been killed. A group of unknown people had broken into the Ghost continent and wantonly massacred the clansmen of the Ghost clan. This matter could not be hidden for long. Moreover, the strength of this group of people was ridiculously strong. Many of them were at the Immortal Emperor realm. Fei and the other higher-ups of the Ghost clan naturally guessed that such a group of people with heaven-defying strength had appeared out of nowhere and were from the Heavenly Policy Mansion. After all, in the entire wood world, there was no force that possessed such strength. Moreover, this group of people had suddenly appeared without any warning. In this case, there was only one explanation, which was that they came from the Great Thousand World. In the Great Thousand World, the only force that had a grudge against the Ghost clan was the Heavenly Policy Palace. Although Fei and the others didn't participate in the great battle back then, they knew the details of the battle through the ancient books in their clan. Therefore, they knew what had happened back then. They also knew that the Heavenly Policy Mansion and the Ghost clan had an irreconcilable relationship. After so many years, the Heavenly Policy Palace was still determined to exterminate the Ghost clan. Upon hearing the elder's words, Fei's face turned gloomy as he said in a deep voice, "In that battle back then, our Ghost clan was defeated. From then on, we no longer had the ability to go against the Heavenly Policy Palace. In the end, if it wasn't for the old ancestor sacrificing his life to break the space-time tunnel between the Great Thousand World and the Wood World, our Ghost clan wouldn't have been able to survive until now. With the current strength of the Ghost clan, it would be very difficult for us to go against the Heavenly Policy Palace." Fei knew that the difference in strength between the Ghost clan and the Heavenly Policy Palace could be said to be incomparable. However, upon hearing this, one of the elders of the Ghost clan below spoke up. "Clan leader, the space-time tunnel between the Wood World and the Great Thousand World has just been formed. According to our speculations, it can only allow Dao Realm experts to pass through. In this way, the End Realm experts of the Heavenly Policy Palace won't be able to descend into the Wood World. This might be our only chance." The Ghost clan naturally knew about the space-time tunnel. After all, they had always been on guard against the Heavenly Policy Palace. Upon hearing this, a strange light flashed across Fei's eyes. Chapter 2087. The space-time tunnel between the Wood World and the Great Thousand World had just been formed. This meant that the End Realm experts of the Heavenly Plan Hall couldn't use the space-time tunnel to descend to the Wood World. This was the best news for the Ghost race. When he heard the elder's words, a bright light flashed across Fei's eyes. He nodded slightly. "That's right. The End Realm experts of the Heavenly Plan Hall can't descend to the Wood World. This is our only chance. If the End Realm experts of the Heavenly Plan Hall could descend to the Wood World, it would be a disaster for the Ghost race. However, since they couldn't descend, this was their chance." As soon as he finished speaking, Fei stood up and swept the elders with his gaze before he said in a low voice, "We'll stop the ceremony for now. Everyone, go prepare for battle. Besides that, move the young and old of the clan to a safe place as soon as possible." Since the Heavenly Plan Hall was attacking, the ceremony couldn't be held anymore. Moreover, Fei planned to move the old and weak to a safe place. At least, they would leave the Ghost continent. However, Fei didn't know that the Ghost continent had been completely sealed by Li Chun. No one could leave unless an Emperor-level expert appeared and forcefully broke the talisman formation. Unfortunately, there were no Emperor-level experts in the wood world. The elders obeyed Yin Fei's order and left to prepare for the battle. Yin Fei didn't leave the hall after the elders left. Instead, he went to the deepest part of the hall where the totem of the Yin Ghost clan was engraved. He formed a seal with his hands and soon, a black door of light appeared. This black door should be connected to a small world, and this small world could be said to be the biggest secret or trump card of the Yin Ghost clan. Even the elders did not know about it, and only the clan leader was qualified to know about it. Moreover, this small world could only be opened by a Baldi who was on the verge of death. Yin Fei had a complicated expression on his face as he looked at the black light before him. He knew that the previous patriarchs had never opened this small world. However, this time around, he had no choice but to open it in the face of the Heavenly Policy Mansion's attack. After taking a deep breath, Yin Fei strode into the black light gate as if he had made a major decision. Along with Yin Fei's disappearance, the black door of light gradually dispersed as well. At the same time, Yin Fei arrived outside a simple black palace. There was only this simple black palace in this small world. Yin Fei pushed open the door and entered. The moment he entered, he saw 2 coffins in the middle of the palace. Cupping his hands, Yin Fei bowed to the coffins and said respectfully, "Junior Yin Fei, the current head of Yin Ghost Clan, greets ancestor." Yin Fei addressed the 2 coffins as old ancestors. Closely after that, a shadow slowly took shape above the 2 coffins at the same time. 2 dying old men appeared in front of Yin Fei. They looked at Yin Fei as one of them said faintly, "Why do you need to open the ancestral land?" This small world was called the ancestral land by the generations of Yin Ghost race chief. It was created after the Yin Ghost race fled to the wood world. At this moment, the 2 illusionary figures in front of him were the only 2 End Realm experts left after the Yin Ghost race was defeated. Back then, the Yin Ghost clan was defeated by the Heavenly Plan Hall. Almost all the experts in the clan were killed, and even the ancestor died. In the end, only 2 End Realm experts led the Yin Ghost clan and they successfully escaped to the wood world. However, even if they escaped to the wood world, the Yin Ghost clan didn't dare to relax at all. This was because they knew that the Heavenly Plan Hall would definitely attack again. Thus, these 2 End Realm experts used a secret technique to seal themselves to prevent their lives from flowing away. This was so that they could become the trump card of the Yin Ghost clan in the future. The 2 of them used a secret technique to seal themselves and they were in deep sleep all year round. Who knew how many years had passed since then? However, although the 2 of them could be said to have successfully survived until now, this secret technique had a huge flaw. It was that they could only use it once. When they were in deep sleep, the 2 of them could guarantee that they wouldn't die as long as their coffins weren't destroyed. However, once they were awakened, they would at most have a month of life left and they wouldn't have the chance to use the secret technique again. To put it bluntly, this secret technique could only be used once. Once they were awakened, the 2 of them wouldn't be far from death. However, Yin Fei had no choice when facing the Heavenly Plan Hall's attack this time. Although the End Realm experts of the Heavenly Plan Hall couldn't pass through the spacetime tunnel, the Dao Realm experts could. Since that was the case, the Heavenly Plan Hall might not send Dao Realm experts over. In the face of a Dao Realm expert, the only strength that the Yin Ghost tribe could take out was the 2 old ancestors who had been in a deep slumber. Only they had the ability to resist the Dao Realm expert of the Heavenly Policy Mansion. Yin Fei truthfully told the 2 of them about the Heavenly Plan Hall. When they heard Yin Fei's words, the 2 illusionary figures fell into silence. A long while later, one of them opened his mouth and spoke. "Forget it. This is all a sin that was planted back then. Go and destroy the coffins." The 2 of them naturally couldn't ignore the Heavenly Plan Hall's attack. Moreover, The reason why the two of them had been in deep sleep until now was to prepare for this moment. Unveil respectfully bowed and replied when he heard the words of this illusionary figure, after which, he attacked the two coffins in the middle of the hall. As the coffins were shattered, two black-robed old men appeared in the hall. Both of them had their eyes tightly shut. Not long after the coffins were shattered, the two illusionary figures from before also slowly disappeared. At the same time, the two black-robed old men also slowly opened their eyes. After a long deep sleep, the two of them finally woke up once again. This kind of awakening actually meant that their lives were about to come to an end. However, the two of them weren't too afraid about this. After all, so many years had passed. Being in such a deep sleep was no different from being dead. Now that the two of them had woken up, the only thing they needed to do was to try their best to protect the Ghost clan and prevent their clan from being completely exterminated. Perhaps it was because they had been in a deep sleep for too long. For an instant, the eyes of the two of them were a little empty. After almost 15 minutes, their eyes gradually emitted a luster. At the same time, one of them waved his hand at Unveil and spoke. "You can leave. The two of us need to rest for a while. I will leave the matters of the clan to you. If the people from the Heavenly Plan Hall come, the two of us will naturally take action." Chapter 2088. The two of them gestured for Unveil to leave. Unveil naturally didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction. After bowing respectfully to the two of them, Unveil left the main hall. The two of them gestured for Unveil to leave. Unveil naturally didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction. After bowing respectfully to the two of them, Unveil left the main hall. The two of them weren't concerned about the current situation of the Ghost tribe. Or rather, the two of them were powerless. The only thing they could do now was to block the experts from the Heavenly Policy Mansion. As for the outcome of the Ghost tribe, they couldn't do anything about it. The old man who spoke earlier sighed softly. The old ancestor has taken a wrong step in his life. The old ancestor that the old man mentioned was naturally the emperor-level figure of the Ghost tribe. Back then, the old ancestor of the Ghost tribe had appeared out of nowhere. He was extremely talented and had broken through to the Emperor realm. He had led the Ghost tribe to great heights. Back then, the Ghost tribe was so glorious. However, because of the old ancestor's wrong step, the prosperity of the Ghost tribe had become short-lived. Back then, not only did the Ghost tribe have more than 10 End Realm experts, but they also had Emperor-level figures. As such, the Ghost tribe naturally wanted to challenge the 10 Great Lingtian sects. However, the old ancestor of the Ghost tribe had chosen the Heavenly Policy Mansion. As everyone knew, there had always been only 10 Lingtian sects. This was the rule set by the will of the Heavenly Way in the Great Thousand World. As such, even if a sect had an Emperor-level figure, if they didn't defeat one of the 10 Great Lingtian sects, they still wouldn't be able to enter the Divine Altar. This was also the reason why the Heavenly Policy sect had to pull the Sword sect down from the Divine Altar when they became one of the 10 Great Lingtian sects. This was because if the Sword sect didn't fall from the Divine Altar, even if the Heavenly Policy sect had the strength of a Lingtian sect, they wouldn't be able to be recognized. It was the same for the Shadow Ghost tribe back then. Although they already had the strength of a Lingtian sect, they could not be recognized because they had to defeat a current Lingtian sect in order to be ranked on the altar. However, this was where the mistake lay. The old ancestor of the sinister Ghost clan wanted to enter the 10 Great Lingtian sects, but in the end, his target was the Heavenly Policy Mansion. They directly declared war on the Heavenly Policy Palace. After that, the two sides fought for many years in succession. In the end, the Dark Ghost clan was defeated, and they paid a disastrous price. That was the cause of everything. Faced with this old man's sigh, the other person beside him also said helplessly, "What's done is done. No one can change it. The winner takes all. This is something that can't be helped. You and I are already people who should die. Let's do our best and leave the rest to fate. What was wrong and what was right in the past? It was meaningless to talk about it now. A loss was a loss. The sinister ghost tribe also hid 2 old ancestors of the End Realm. Xiao Chun, Li Chun, Dao Ju, Xiao Xiao, and the others naturally did not know about this. At this moment, the 4 of them were rushing towards the Mu City. At the same time, the other cultivators who participated in the Heavenly Policy Mansion's assessment also rushed towards the Mu City after they found out that the Mu City was the lair of the sinister ghost tribe. In the Mu City, after the various elders of the sinister ghost tribe listened to Yin Fei's orders, they prepared to send the old, weak, women, and children out of the sinister ghost continent. However, in the end, they could not leave at all. The entire sinister ghost continent was sealed, and the teleportation formation could not be used at all. In the main hall, after hearing the news, Yin Fei, who had already returned, had a grave expression on his face. He muttered softly, "The Heavenly Policy Mansion is trying to kill us all." They had sealed the entire sinister ghost continent. This was obviously to prevent anyone from the sinister ghost tribe from escaping. Upon hearing Yin Fei's words, the faces of the elders of the sinister ghost tribe below turned ugly. Now it was impossible for them to escape. Looking at the solemn expressions on everyone's faces, Yin Fei gritted his teeth and said, "Everyone, it's a matter of life and death. Now, the sinister ghost tribe has no way out. We can only fight to the end." Since there was no way to retreat, naturally, they could only fight to the end. Upon hearing this, the various elders of the sinister ghost tribe revealed a look of determination. The sinister ghost tribe was preparing to fight with all their might. On the other side, the various sect leaders who were invited to participate in the sinister ghost tribe's sacrificial ceremony also felt that something was amiss. The sacrificial ceremony, which was supposed to continue, actually stopped halfway. Then, the atmosphere of the entire Mu City seemed to have become tense. The faces of the surrounding sinister ghost tribe cultivators were all solemn and even terrified. It was as if something terrible was about to happen. The sudden change also caused the various sect leaders to feel suspicious in their hearts. Many of them used their voice transmission talismans to inquire about what had happened. After the various sect leaders' inquiries, they gradually learned that a group of unknown experts seemed to have invaded the sinister ghost continent and massacred the sinister ghost tribe cultivators. Someone was seeking revenge on the sinister ghost tribe. As for who the intruders were and what their identities were, the various sect leaders did not know. However, one thing was certain, that this group of people was very powerful. At least, the sinister ghost tribe was unable to put up any resistance in front of them. Realizing that a great war was about to break out in Mu City, the various sect leaders prepared to leave. After all, they did not want to be involved in the war between the sinister ghost tribe and this group of mysterious people. However, at this time, the sinister ghost tribe chose to reject the departure of the various sect leaders. The city gate was sealed and the city protection array had been activated. Yin Fei also ordered the various sect leaders to gather at the square. It was still the same square. However, at this time, the atmosphere became extremely solemn. Looking at Yin Fei and the group of elders of the sinister ghost tribe on the high platform, someone spoke. "Clan leader Yin Fei, we have no intention of interfering in the affairs of the sinister ghost tribe. Why don't you let us leave?" Some of the sect leaders present were affiliated forces of the sinister ghost tribe, while some were not. Therefore, they had no reason to fight for the sinister ghost tribe. However, after hearing this person's words, Yin Fei said in a deep voice, "Everyone, to be honest, a group of bandits has broken into the wood world and the sinister ghost continent. This group of bandits is not weak, so I need your help. Everyone is a part of the wood world. Now that the wood world is in trouble, Do you intend to stand by and do nothing? In the face of the Heavenly Policy Mansion's attack, not only did unveil awaken the two elders, but he even planned to borrow the strength of the various major forces present. As long as he could stop the Heavenly Policy Mansion, unveil would do whatever it took. He wanted to ally with the various large sects present. Unfortunately, these people were no fools. Naturally, they would not listen to a few simple words from unveil. The person who spoke earlier immediately opened his mouth and said after hearing unveil's words, "Tribe leader unveil, our strength is insignificant and we are unable to be of much help. Tribe leader unveil, please allow us to leave." Chapter 2089. Everyone knew that Shao Chun and his group were very powerful. At the very least, the Ghost tribe did not have much strength to fight back. Moreover, according to the news that the sect leaders had received, there were many celestial emperors in Shao Chun's group. Therefore, although they did not know the identity of Shao Chun and the others, when faced with such a group of people, who would not think of provoking them for no reason. Therefore, none of the sect leaders were willing to offend Shao Chun and his group for the sake of the Ghost tribe. However, as soon as the sect leader's words left his mouth, unveil, who was standing on the high platform, pointed his finger at the sect leader. Unveil, who was at the mastery of the comprehension realm, was undoubtedly the strongest person in the wood world. Therefore, the sect master was unable to resist unveil's finger attack, and was killed by a single finger attack. A bloody hole could be seen in his chest. Soon after, the sect leader's corpse fell to the ground. Unveil's sudden attack had shocked the sect leaders and sect leaders. Everyone looked at Unveil in horror. Upon seeing this, Unveil shouted coldly, "All of you are from the wood world. Everyone here is from the wood world. Now that the wood world is facing a great calamity, if anyone doesn't want to contribute to the wood world, then don't blame Unveil for turning hostile." Now that the people from the Heavenly Policy Mansion had arrived, Unveil naturally couldn't care less. The strength of these sect masters and sect masters present wasn't weak, and could be considered a great help. Unveil naturally wouldn't let them go. In the face of Unveil, who would kill without saying a word, the sect leaders and sect leaders no longer dared to object. Regardless of whether they were willing or not, at least they had chosen to submit to Unveil at this moment. There was no other way. Based on Unveil's current state, if anyone dared to resist, they would only end up dead. Unveil swept his gaze across the sect leaders. When he saw that no one dared to say anything, he said coldly, "All right, everyone, gather all the experts in your sects and rush to Mu City." The only thing that Unveil could do now was to gather the strength of the entire wood world to deal with the Heavenly Policy Mansion. While Unveil was preparing to deal with the Heavenly Policy Mansion, the starship that Shao Chun and the others were on had arrived outside Mu City. Standing on the deck, they could see the outline of Mu City from afar. Shao Chun and the other starship had arrived in Mu City. Behind them were two starships from the Heavenly Policy Mansion. More than 2,000 cultivators who were participating in the Heavenly Policy Mansion's assessment were on the starship. And Ghost clan. In the main hall of the city, Unveil learned that the people from Heavenly Policy Mansion had arrived outside Mu City. Now that things had progressed to this point, Unveil had calmed down. He stood up and said to the people in the main hall, "Everyone, come with me to fight." There was no way to escape. The entire Ghost continent had been completely sealed off. They would die no matter if they fought or not. Moreover, they might still have a chance to survive if they fought to the death. Naturally, Unveil would not choose to surrender. Upon hearing Unveil's words, the elders of the Ghost clan shouted in unison. However, the sect leaders were obviously not as determined as the Ghost clan to fight to the death. Regardless of what the crowd thought, they still strode out of the hall under Unveil's lead. They flew up and arrived outside the city. In the sky outside Wood City, Fei led a group of experts of the Ghost clan, as well as the sect masters and sect masters, looking at the 3 spaceships in the distance. Looking at the flags with the words Heavenly Policy written on them, Fei's eyes flickered with cold pythons. However, the sect masters and sect masters were confused. Heavenly Policy? They naturally did not know what the words Heavenly Policy represented. In the wood world, there was no sect or clan named Heavenly Policy. Everyone had their own thoughts. However, at this moment, Fei softly muttered, "Even until today, the Heavenly Policy Palace still refuses to let my Dark Ghost clan off. Forget it. Today, allow me, Fei, to see exactly how strong your Heavenly Policy Palace is." Fei was determined to fight to the death. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the 3 starships slowly stopped outside Mu City, in front of Fei and the others. The 2 sides faced each other from a distance. At the same time, more than 2,000 experts flew out from the starships. Eventually, Shao Chen, Dao Ju, Xiao Xiao, Li Chun, and several Dao Realm elders of the Heavenly Policy Mansion arrived. The 2 sides faced each other. Dao Ju held his head with both hands and said listlessly, "Li Chun, this is a clan that has been crippled. Why is your Heavenly Policy Mansion wasting so much effort? Look, the strongest expert is only in the comprehension realm." Dao Ju saw through the Ghost clan's strength with a single glance. The strongest expert was Fei, who was only in the comprehension realm. In Dao Ju's eyes, Fei was simply weak. Saber Ju could not arouse the interest of the Ghost clan at all. However, Li Chun did not intend to answer. His eyes fell directly on Fei. Judging from his cultivation, Fei was the current patriarch of the Ghost clan. After all, Fei was clearly the strongest among all the Ghost clan experts present. Li Chun fixed his gaze on Fei and said indifferently, "If you're not a member of the Ghost clan, you can leave now." It was easy to distinguish the Ghost clan from the other clans. Basically, one could tell at a glance. The sect masters present were obviously not from the Ghost clan. Therefore, Li Chun did not have much killing intent towards them. If they left on their own accord, Li Chun would not make things difficult for them. As Li Chun spoke, a Dao realm aura emanated from his body. As soon as this aura appeared, the sect masters' expressions changed drastically. This was because they had never seen this aura before. However, one thing was certain. This aura was definitely much stronger than Fei's. There was no comparison at all. Being enveloped by Li Chun's aura, the sect masters were shocked. At the same time, they also had the intention to retreat. Powerful, too powerful. Making an enemy out of such a person was simply courting death. Moreover, Li Chun had already said that anyone who was not a member of the Ghost clan could leave. This meant that Li Chun's target was only the Ghost clan and had nothing to do with them. The sect masters all had the intention to retreat. Some of them even quietly left the Ghost clan's camp. Obviously, they wanted to draw a clear line between themselves and the Ghost clan. However, just as the sect masters were about to leave, 2 more terrifying auras soared up from Mu City. Sensing these 2 auras, Dao Ju, who had been indolent all this time, suddenly laughed. A centipede does not fall down even when it is dead. You even hid your strength. Interesting. Chapter 2090. 2 auras that were even more terrifying than Li Chun's soared into the sky from Mu City. Judging from their auras, they were at least at the End Realm. Dao Ju exclaimed softly, but there was no trace of nervousness on her face. Not only Dao Ju, but Li Chun, Xiao Chen, and Xiao Xiao also remained calm. Although they didn't know that there were End Realm experts hiding in the ghost race, the 4 of them weren't afraid because 2 End Realm experts were still within their capabilities. However, compared to Xiao Chen and the other 3 who were still calm, the ghost race, including the sect leaders and sect masters, except for Fei, were all shocked. They had never encountered such an aura before, and no one knew that there were such terrifying existences hidden in Mu City. The group of elders of the ghost race looked at Fei, and one of them couldn't help but ask, Patriarch, this is… The elders didn't know that there was such a power hidden in Mu City. Hearing this, Fei didn't hide it anymore and said calmly, this is the last power of the ghost race. This was indeed the last power of the ghost race, and it could only be used once. As Fei's voice fell, the two old men in the Black Palace appeared out of thin air in front of everyone. Their bodies were thin and withered, and they were even a little stooped. They wore loose black robes, and their faces were full of wrinkles. However, in the face of these two old men who looked like they could die at any time, no one dared to look down on them because the aura they exuded unconsciously made people's hearts palpitate. Greetings, old ancestor. Fei was the first to speak. Seeing this, the rest of the ghost race experts also cupped their hands and bowed. Greetings, old ancestor. Apart from Fei, the rest of the experts of the Ghost clan didn't know the identities of these two. However, their appearance undoubtedly gave the Ghost clan a shot in the arm. It turned out that there was such a powerful force in the clan. The appearance of the two elders had indeed boosted the confidence of the members of the Ghost tribe. Even the sect leaders began to waver at this time. Previously, Li Chun's aura made them feel terrified, and they wanted to retreat. But now, the aura of these two old men was even stronger than Li Chun's. In this way, the sect leaders naturally had to weigh the pros and cons. Think about it. If the Dark Ghost clan won, what would be the consequences for those who chose to withdraw? With the way the ghost race had always acted, they probably wouldn't let them go. Based on the current situation, it seemed that the Ghost clan had a higher chance of winning. After all, the appearance of the two old men was indeed shocking. As a result, many of the sect leaders chose to stay. The two old men did not pay any attention to the actions of these people. From the beginning until the end, their gazes were fixed on Li Chun, Xiao Qin, and the rest. One of the four asked in a hoarse voice. As expected, the End Realm experts of your Heavenly Policy Hall didn't descend to the Wood World. The two of them seemed to have guessed this long ago. After all, their ancestor had sacrificed his life to destroy the space-time passageway between the vast Thousand World and the Wood World. Although the space-time passageway would slowly regenerate with the passage of time, judging from the current time, it was impossible for the space-time passageway to regenerate so quickly. Therefore, the two of them concluded that the space-time tunnel had just been opened, and it couldn't allow too much power to pass through. As expected, the Heavenly Policy Hall didn't have any End Realm experts descending. However, when he heard this, Li Chun's expression didn't change. So what? Li Chun didn't deny their guesses and admitted it generously. However, his tone was filled with absolute confidence. It felt like he could destroy the ghost race even without an End Realm expert. Seeing how confident Li Chun was, the old man smiled. However, his smile was a little bitter and helpless. At the same time, he slowly opened his mouth and said, "So much time has passed since that incident. Is your Heavenly Policy Hall still not willing to give up? Moreover, my ghost race has never thought of returning to the Great Thousand World. Can't you even give us a chance to live?" The old man didn't want to fight with the Heavenly Policy Hall because he knew that so what if they won? As time passed and the space-time tunnel gradually stabilized, the Heavenly Policy Hall would still send experts down. At that time, the ones who descended wouldn't be Dao Realm experts but End Realm expert. What would they do then? They hoped that they could resolve their grudges with the Heavenly Policy Hall because the current ghost race obviously didn't have the ability to compete with them. However, when he heard the old man's words, Li Chun didn't hesitate and replied, "You are wrong. The incident back then hasn't ended. Therefore, your ghost race must be destroyed." In the eyes of the Heavenly Policy Hall, the battle back then hadn't ended because the ghost race hadn't been destroyed. Only when the ghost race was completely destroyed would the matter truly come to an end. When they heard Li Chun's words, the two old men looked at each other. Then, the old man spoke again. However, this time, his tone was a little cold. Forget it. Since that's the case, then come. Even if we can't escape the fate of being destroyed, we will at least make your heavenly policy hall suffer a little. The meaning of the old man's words was obvious. Compared to the heavenly policy hall, the ghost race couldn't be compared. However, because the space-time tunnel hadn't stabilized, the heavenly policy hall didn't send any end realm experts down this time. This way, with their end realm cultivation, they didn't need to fear Li Chun and the other Dao realm experts. Even if they couldn't escape the fate of being destroyed, they would at least destroy Li Chun and the others this time. They only thought that Li Chun and the others were Dao realm experts and weren't much of a threat to them. However, the two of them didn't expect that Li Chun, Xiao Qin, Dao Ju, and Xiao Xiao weren't ordinary Dao realm experts. They were geniuses of the great thousand world, and ordinary Dao realm experts couldn't compare to them. As their words fell, the aura of the two old men soared into the sky. In an instant, two terrifying auras spread out. One of them even shouted, "Ghost race, follow me to kill the enemy." After speaking, the two of them took the lead to attack Li Chun and the others. Li Chun didn't show any fear and shouted, "Kill." Then, the two sides quickly engaged in a great battle. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2091. Facing two End Realm experts, Xiao Xiao, Xiao Qin, Dao Ju, and Li Chun were in charge of blocking them. Only the four of them had the right to fight with End Realm experts. Xiao Xiao, Xiao Qin, Dao Ju, and Li Chun worked together to block the two End Realm experts of the Yin Ghost race. The others all found their own opponents and fought intensely. They thought that Li Chun and the others were just at the Dao realm and were just at the entry level. Such cultivation wouldn't be much of a threat to them at all. However, the two Yin Ghost race elders didn't expect Xiao Qin and the others to be so strong. The moment they clashed, the elder who was fighting with Xiao Qin and Xiao Xiao punched out. A terrifying aura covered Xiao Qin and Xiao Xiao as he hollered coldly, "Brats who are still wet behind the ears, you want to fight with me? You are a few hundred years too young." The old man thought that his punch would be enough to severely injure or even kill Xiao Xiao and Xiao Qin. However, Xiao Qin had no intention of backing down. With a thought, the dustless sword appeared in his hand in an instant. He then slashed with the sword, and the blood-red sword aura clashed with the old man's fist. It was obvious that the old man had underestimated Xiao Qin and Xiao Xiao. As such, he did not use his full strength in that punch. It was not until his sword collided with Xiao Qin's blade that the old man realized his mistake. However, it was obviously too late by then, because Xiao Xiao had already appeared on the old man's left side without him noticing. She struck out with her palm, and a moonlight flashed and blasted toward the old man. Facing Xiao Xiao's attack, after the old man destroyed Xiao Qin's sword light, he didn't dare to stop and punched out once more. Only then was he able to force back Xiao Xiao's attack. At first, the old man thought that it would be easy for him to defeat Xiao Qin and Xiao Xiao with his strength. However, after the first fight between the two, the old man realized that he was wrong and very wrong. Although Xiao Qin and Xiao Xiao seemed to be at the beginning of the Dao realm, their combat strength was far beyond this level. In fact, after a short exchange of blows, the old man was certain that Xiao Qin and Xiao Xiao's combat strength was not weaker than the great attainment of the Dao realm. Moreover, this was only shown in a single blow. It was still impossible to determine their true strength. It should have been a complete crushing result, but the two sides were evenly matched. After successfully blocking Xiao Qin and Zhao's attacks, the old man no longer looked at the two of them with disdain. A complicated expression flashed across his eyes as the old man said solemnly, "The Heavenly Plan Hall really put in a lot of effort. Since the End Realm experts can't enter, they actually found 4 geniuses. Do they want to use the combat strength of the highest Tao realm to destroy the Een Ghost race? After one move, the old man was sure that Xiao Chen and Xiao Xiao were the geniuses of the Great Thousand World. This was because only geniuses could have the strength to fight against End Realm experts when they were still in the Tao realm. However, the Heavenly Plan Hall should only have one genius. Therefore, the old man thought that the Heavenly Plan Hall put in a lot of effort and didn't hesitate to find 4 geniuses to destroy the Een Ghost race. It should be known that every monstrous prodigy basically represented the future of a powerful force. Moreover, only the top 10 Ling Tian sects had the ability to nurture a monstrous prodigy. In that case, apart from the monstrous prodigy in the Heavenly Policy Mansion, the other 3 monstrous prodigies were obviously recruited from the other Ling Tian sects. One could well imagine the price one would have to pay to get such a monstrous genius to take action, especially in an unknown lesser thousand world like the Wood World. The old man felt bitter about the Heavenly Plan Hall's determination to destroy the Een Ghost race. So many years had passed. Did the Heavenly Plan Hall really want to destroy the Een Ghost race so urgently? They didn't even wait for the space-time tunnel to stabilize. They would rather send out 4 geniuses to destroy the Een Ghost race as soon as possible. With a self-deprecating laugh, the old man said in a deep voice, "Come on, let me see how strong the geniuses of the Great Thousand World are." As he said that, the old man's aura surged once again. It was obvious that he didn't underestimate Xiao Chen and Xiao Xiao anymore. He took a step forward and instantly disappeared from the spot. In the next moment, he appeared in front of Xiao Chen without any warning. Black energy surrounded his iron fist as he punched out. His speed and power were much faster than before. Especially his power. The power that exploded out from his withered body was definitely enough to make one's heart race. Facing the old man's ferocious attack, Xiao Chen raised his sword to block. However, the strong power still sent Xiao Chen flying. After sending Xiao Chen flying with a punch, the elder did not stop there. He flashed again and appeared before Xiao Xiao in the next moment. He threw a punch at Xiao Xiao as well. A crescent barrier appeared before Xiao Xiao, and the two collided. While Xiao Xiao successfully blocked the elder's punch, Xiao Xiao was sent flying by the elder's punch, just like Xiao Chen. The old man who didn't underestimate Xiao Chen and Xiao Xiao at all revealed terrifying combat strength. His End Realm cultivation totally exploded out at this moment. After sending 2 people flying, the old man said solemnly, "As geniuses, is this all you have? You can't even block one of my fists." Xiao Chen felt a thick fighting spirit from the old man. Of course, Xiao Chen didn't know that the old man only had a month left to live. Anyway, he was about to die. To be able to fight with the geniuses of the world before he died was a joyous matter. Xiao Chen stopped in his tracks and smiled faintly. "Of course, I won't let you down," Xiao Chen said as he sensed the intense fighting spirit emanating from the old man. Blood-red swords continued to coalesce around Xiao Chen as he spoke. The swords burst, and the sword realm was unleashed, shrouding the old man and Xiao Xiao in a short time. Being enveloped by the sword realm, the old man felt an incomparably sharp intent, as well as streaks of terrifying sword chi. A weird expression flashed across his eyes, but then he became excited. "Sword body, you are the genius of the sword sect? I didn't expect that I would have a chance to fight with the sword body." Sword body, the top special body type. The old man knew about it. Moreover, through the sword body, the old man quickly determined that Xiao Chen was from the sword sect. After all, in the old man's era, sword cultivators with the sword body were definitely disciples of the sword sect. This was because the other sword sects didn't have the ability to develop a sword body. Only the sword sect had such ability. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2092. When Xiao Chen displayed the sword body, not only did the old man not show much fear, but his fighting spirit was even more awe-inspiring. He looked at Xiao Chen and shouted coldly. At the same time, a terrifying aura gushed out. When Xiao Chen displayed the sword body, not only did the old man not show much fear, but his fighting spirit was even more awe-inspiring. He looked at Xiao Chen and shouted coldly. At the same time, a terrifying aura gushed out. Being enveloped by Xiao Chen's sword realm, one could imagine the pressure that the old man was under. Moreover, the old man was not only facing Xiao Chen, but also Xiao Xiao, who was also a supreme talent of the Great Thousand World. In all the years that they had known each other, Xiao Chen had never seen Xiao Xiao go all out. However, this time, Xiao Xiao displayed her terrifying side in front of Xiao Chen. After Xiao Chen displayed the sword body, a crescent moon slowly condensed behind Xiao Xiao. The crescent moon was like a pair of wings that appeared behind Xiao Xiao's back. At the same time, along with the appearance of the crescent moon, Xiao Xiao's aura underwent a drastic change. A wave of chilliness gushed out wildly. This wave of chilliness that exuded from Xiao Xiao's body was different from Qin Shuru's ice god physique. This wave of chilliness could even chill one's soul. The shadow of the crescent moon served as a foil for Xiao Xiao. For a moment, Xiao Xiao seemed to have transformed into a moon fairy. Upon seeing this, the old man muttered softly. Lunar Yin physique similar to Xiao Chen's sword body, the lunar Yin physique was also one of the top concentrated physiques in the world. One was a sword body, while the other was a moon Yin body. The elder's eyes gradually revealed a solemn look. The demonic geniuses of the Great Thousand World were indeed worthy of their reputations. None of them were simple. Every demonic genius possessed shocking strength and trump cards. This was the first time that Xiao Chen had seen Xiao Chen's special physique. Hence, he was slightly stunned. However, he quickly fixed his gaze on the old man. At the same time, with a thought, a blood sword appeared in Xiao Chen's hand. With a slash of his sword, a blood-red sword light fiercely attacked the old man. In the face of Xiao Chen's attack, the old man didn't dodge at all and punched out. However, this time, Xiao Chen's attack was obviously much stronger than before because he had used the sword body. As such, the old man did not gain any advantage in this collision. The old man shattered Xiao Chen's sword with a single punch. However, the old man's attack also gradually dissipated. At the same time, Xiao Xiao appeared on the old man's left side. His right hand slowly streaked across the void. Instantly, a crescent moon attacked the old man, carrying with it a chilling aura. Moonlight slash. Xiao Chen shouted softly. The most terrifying thing about the lunar Yin physique was not its attack power, but its extreme coldness that could freeze everything. Moreover, the lunar Yin physique's attack was extremely threatening to the soul. The slightest carelessness could cause serious damage to the soul. This was the reason why everyone was most afraid of the lunar Yin physique. In the face of Xiao Xiao's moonlight slash, the old man did not choose to take it head-on. Instead, he dodged sideways and narrowly avoided Xiao Xiao's attack. Xiao Xiao's attack did not hit the old man. Instead, it landed heavily on the Mu City, which was not far away. The attack seemed small, but when it landed on the Mu City, a white light suddenly shot up into the sky. Then, under the white light, half of the Mu City was almost destroyed in an instant. Looking at the doomsday-like scene, many warriors of the Yin Ghost clan were stunned. The Mu City had a great city defense array, but even so, it still could not withstand Xiao Xiao's attack. Many warriors stood rooted to the ground in shock. Such an attack was simply beyond their understanding. When the attack landed, the Mu City could be said to have become a purgatory on Earth. Those warriors of the Yin Ghost clan with low cultivation did not even have time to react before they died. Seeing that Xiao Xiao's attack had destroyed half of the Mu City, the old man's eyes flashed with anger. He shouted, You You are courting death. Xiao Zhao's attack had killed at least tens of thousands of warriors of the Yin Ghost clan. This naturally made the old man furious. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he stared at Xiao Xiao. At the same time, flames burned fiercely around the old man, causing the surrounding temperature to soar. Seeing so many of his clansmen being killed, the old man was really angry. Although he was not far from death, the old man had deep feelings for the descendants of the Yin Ghost clan. He did not want the Yin Ghost clan to be destroyed. Because of this, the old man did not hesitate to use a secret method to survive until now. Even if I die today, I will protect the Yin Ghost clan, the old man said coldly. The old man coldly shouted as the surrounding temperature rose. At the same time, a huge axe that was burning with flames appeared in his hand. Die! With a furious roar, the old man swung the axe down. In an instant, a flaming attack slashed fiercely toward Xiao Xiao. This attack was definitely the old man's angry attack. In the face of the old man's attack, Xiao Xiao obviously could not withstand it. Although he immediately condensed a moonlight in front of him to block the attack, the moonlight was quickly destroyed by the old man's attack. Just as the old man's attack was about to hit Xiao Xiao, Xiao Chen appeared in front of him and said coldly, "You have more than one opponent." As he said that, Xiao Chen protected Xiao Xiao and condensed a sword barrier in front of him. Numerous blood swords protected Xiao Chen and Xiao Xiao. Then, with a loud bang, a huge explosion formed by flames and blood energy exploded in the sky. In the sky, numerous flames fell like raindrops. The terrifying shock waves of the battle affected many people who were fighting intensely. Those who were unable to dodge in time were instantly killed. With the combined strength of the two of them, they were barely able to block it. This was the terror of an End Realm expert. Although his attack did not succeed, the old man was not discouraged. After all, geniuses like Xiao Chen and Xiao Xiao were naturally not easy to defeat, much less when the two of them worked together. He did not give Xiao Chen and Xiao Xiao much time to breathe. After his attack landed, the old man held the giant axe in his hand. Flames burned around his body as he attacked Xiao Chen and Xiao Xiao once again. Facing the old man's attack, Xiao Chen said softly to Xiao Xiao, "Senior sister, be careful." As he said that, he held his sword and charged forwards. Numerous blood swords surrounded his body. Instantly, he engaged in an intense battle with the old man. However, facing the old man who attacked with hatred, Xiao Chen was obviously at a disadvantage. The gap between the End Realm and the Dao Realm was not so easy to cross. Moreover, the old man did not just break through to the End Realm. His cultivation was not weak at all. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2093. Xiao Chen and the old man were locked in an intense battle. Facing the old man who attacked with hatred, Xiao Chen was indeed having a tough time. Luckily, he had Xiao Zhao's help. The two of them had indeed reduced Xiao Chen's pressure by quite a bit. This was the first time that Xiao Chen was in such a life and death battle with an End Realm expert. If he wasn't careful, he might die. Xiao Chen and Xiao Xiao were locked in an intense battle with the old man. On the other side, Li Chun and Dao Ju were the same. The two of them had already gone all out and were locked in an intense battle with the other old ancestor of the Yin Ghost race. Apart from Xiao Chen's group of 4 and the 2 old ancestors of the Yin Ghost race, the other elders of the Heaven Plan Hall and the martial artists of the Yin Ghost race were also locked in an intense battle. However, compared to the Heaven Plan Hall, the Yin Ghost race was obviously at a disadvantage. Especially after their 2 End Realm old ancestors were locked in battle with Xiao Chen's group of 4, no one from the Yin Ghost race could deal with the elders of the Heaven Plan Hall. This time, the Heaven Plan Hall sent out a total of 10 elders. Although their combat strength might not be as strong as Xiao Chen's group of 4, since they could become elders of the Heaven Plan Hall, their cultivation was at the Tao realm. They were on the same level as the sword head of the sword sect. No one from the Yin Ghost race could stop the 10 Tao realm expert. After all, apart from the 2 hidden End realm old ancestors, the strongest person in the Yin Ghost race was the race leader, Yin Fei. However, his cultivation was only at the comprehension realm, and there was still a huge gap between him and the Tao realm. At this point in the battle, the situation was pretty much one-sided. Many of the Yin Ghost race martial artists were being killed by the people of the Heaven Plan Hall. The difference in strength was indeed huge. The Yin Ghost race didn't have much ability to fight back against the experts of the Heaven Plan Hall. Just as both sides were locked in an intense battle, the 2 old ancestors of the Yin Ghost race, who were still unable to break free from Xiao Chen's group of 4, shouted at the same time. Tiandao, are you still not going to attack? The 2 of them shouted angrily at the same time. As soon as they finished speaking, a white light suddenly appeared on the battlefield. Then, a middle-aged man appeared on the battlefield. The middle-aged man was the will of the heavenly way from the wood realm. He sighed and said softly, "This is a grudge from many years ago. Why do you have to be so ruthless? The Yin Ghost race is no longer a threat to your heavenly policy palace. Why do you have to be so aggressive?" The appearance of the will of the heavenly way caused everyone to unconsciously stop what they were doing. No one had expected that the will of the heavenly way of the wood realm would actually appear to help the Dark Ghost clan, and at such a crucial time. Faced with the sudden appearance of the will of the heavenly way, Li Chun said, "The grudges of the past have nothing to do with me. I was just following orders." Li Chun had not personally experienced the grudges between the Yin Ghost race and the Heavenly Policy Palace, as well as that great battle. He was not even born at that time. Therefore, Li Chun did not care about being so aggressive. Everything he did today was just following orders. Everything was just because of Li Zhao's orders. Li Chun was just following orders. Hearing Li Chun's words, the 2 old ancestors of the Yin Ghost race sneered and said, "Ha, Li Xiao, what a great Li Xiao! Is it really because of that battle that year that you want to destroy our Yin Ghost race?" The reason why the Heavenly Policy Palace was so eager to destroy the Yin Ghost race had always been because of that battle, but was that really the truth? Li Chun, Xiao Chen, Xiao Xiao, and the Dao Ju, or rather, everyone present did not know what happened back then. Even if they knew, it was just hearsay. Therefore, no one knew what happened between the Yin Ghost race and the Heavenly Policy Palace back then, and why the Heavenly Policy Palace wanted to destroy the Yin Ghost race. However, the 2 old ancestors of the Yin Ghost race knew what happened back then because they had personally experienced it. Li Chun had a cold smile on his face, but he did not say anything. Instead, the will of the heavenly way from the wood world said in a deep voice, "Everyone from the Heavenly Policy Palace, it has been so long since that incident back then. No matter how great the grudges are, it should have dissipated. Why don't both sides stop now?" The appearance of the will of the heavenly way from the wood world caused both sides to temporarily stop fighting. At the same time, in the Heavenly Policy Palace of the Great Thousand World, Jun Huia and Li Xiao were sitting opposite each other in Li Zhao's cave. As for Luo Xing, he was not present. There was a jar of wine in front of each of them. Jun Huia took a sip and then looked at Li Xiao in front of him and said, "Why do you want to destroy the Yin Ghost race?" "Because of the battle back then." Hearing this, Li Xiao also took a sip of wine and said unhurriedly. In response to Li Zhao's answer, Jun Huia smiled noncommittally and said, "Is that so? The battle back then has already passed. If it was only because of that, with your character, you would never be so aggressive." Jun Huia and Li Xiao had known each other since they were young, so he knew Li Zhao's character very well. If it was only because of the battle back then, Li Xiao would never be so aggressive and vowed to destroy the Yin Ghost race. Hearing Jun Huia's words, Li Xiao fell into silence. He had no intention of replying. He drank his wine alone and fell into silence as well. Looking at the silent Li Xiao, Jun Wuya's face turned serious and said, "What exactly happened back then?" The battle between the Heavenly Policy Hall and the Yin Ghost race erupted too strangely. Also, what is your relationship with Yin Litian? In addition, yesterday you used your soul doppelganger. You should have gone to the wood world, right? Jun Wuya asked 3 questions in a row. In response to Jun Wuya's questions, Li Xiao's expression became more and more complicated. A trace of reminiscence and hatred flashed through his eyes. After taking a big gulp of wine, Li Xiao finally said something that could be said to be within Jun Wuya's expectations, but it was also extremely shocking. Li Xiao's eyes were filled with reminiscence as he said indifferently, "Back then, you and Luo Xing entered your own sect or master because of your identity. As for me, because I had no relatives or friends, I couldn't enter those powerful sects at all. In the end, after many twists and turns, I became the disciple of Emperor Mingfeng. When I became the disciple of Master, Master already had a disciple. He was Yin Litian. He and I were actually martial brothers. Yin Litian was the ancestor of the Yin Ghost race and the emperor of the Yin Ghost race back then. Jun Wuya didn't expect Li Xiao and Yin Litian to be martial brothers. This was something that Jun Wuya didn't know. After being stunned for a moment, Jun Wuya came back to his senses and said, "I see, this makes sense. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 2094. Li Xiao and Yin Litian were actually fellow disciples. Upon hearing this, Jun Wuya revealed a look of realization. Li Xiao and Yin Litian were actually fellow disciples. Upon hearing this, Jun Wuya revealed a look of realization. Jun Wuya did not know much about the incident between the Dark Ghost Clan and the Heavenly Policy Mansion. Moreover, Jun Wuya did not intervene at that time. However, Jun Wuya always felt that it was a coincidence. The reason was the relationship between Li Xiao and Yin Litian. Before the war broke out between the two sides, Yin Litian and Li Xiao's relationship could be said to be very close. Although no one knew that the two were actually brothers, Yin Litian would often come to the Heavenly Policy Mansion at that time, and Li Xiao would also often go to the Yin Ghost Clan. Before the war broke out, Yin Litian and Li Xiao were considered to be very close friends in the eyes of outsiders. However, it could be said that a war broke out between these two people without any warning. At that time, it was widely rumored that the Dark Ghost Clan attacked the Heavenly Policy Mansion because they wanted to become one of the 10 great Ling Tian sects. However, in Jun Wuya's opinion, such a rumor was actually unfounded. This was because Yin Litian had no reason to target the Heavenly Policy Mansion. Putting aside their previous relationship, the Heavenly Policy Mansion's strength at that time was already not weak. Since Yin Litian wanted to lead the Dark Ghost Clan to become one of the 10 great Ling Tian sects, why would he target the powerful Heavenly Policy Mansion? Wouldn't it be better to choose the weakest Ling Tian sect? The matter was very strange and strange. Today, Li Xiao took the initiative to reveal his relationship with Yin Litian. Jun Wuya figured everything out. The reason for the war was obviously not as simple as the rumors said. It was definitely not because of the 10 great Ling Tian sect. Just as Jun Wuya had guessed, Li Xiao soon gave the answer. After taking a sip of wine, Li Xiao said indifferently, "Back then, Yin Litian and I were cultivating under Honored Master's tutelage. Although I became Honored Master's tutelage later than Yin Litian, my talent was much higher than Yin Litian's, so I quickly caught up with him in terms of cultivation. In the end, I took the final step before him and broke through to the Emperor realm. After I broke through to the Emperor realm, Honored Master allowed me to complete my apprenticeship. After that, I founded the Heavenly Policy Palace. Many years later, I broke through to the Emperor realm and returned to the Ghost clan. In the beginning, because we were fellow disciples, I was very close to Litian. However, one day that bastard actually killed Master for a precious treasure. That was how the great battle began. Li Xiao revealed the truth. Back then, the great battle between the Heavenly Policy Mansion and the Nether Ghost Clan was not because they were fighting for the position of the 10 Great Ling Tian sect. To put it bluntly, it was not the Nether Ghost Clan who made the first move. It was the Heavenly Policy Mansion who made the first move because Li Xiao wanted to avenge his master, Supreme Ancestor Ming Feng. Upon hearing Li Xiao's words, Jun Wuya's face revealed a look of shock as he asked in astonishment, "Precious treasure? You're not talking about Supreme Ancestor Ming Feng's upper river diagram, are you?" Jun Wuya had never seen Supreme Ancestor Ming Feng before, but he had heard of him. In terms of seniority, Supreme Ancestor Ming Feng was older than Jun Wuya and Li Xiao. Moreover, Supreme Ancestor Ming Feng was a rogue cultivator who did not pass down his strength to any sect. All along, Supreme Ancestor Ming Feng had been elusive. Therefore, Supreme Ancestor Ming Feng was definitely the most mysterious Supreme Ancestor in the world. What everyone knew about Supreme Ancestor Ming Feng the most was his precious treasure, or rather, a divine artifact, which was the mountain and river diagram. It was said that the mountain and river diagram was personally refined by Supreme Ancestor Ming Feng. Moreover, Supreme Ancestor Ming Feng had nourished it with his own blood essence all year round. Its power was extremely terrifying. Jun Wuya immediately guessed that it was the mountain and river diagram. Hearing this, Li Xiao did not deny it and nodded slightly. "That's right, it's really the mountain and river diagram." It was for the mountain and river diagram that Litian killed his master with his own hand. One could imagine how intense Li Xiao's hatred was when he learned that his master had been killed by Litian. That was why Li Xiao had been relentlessly attacking the Ghost clan for so many years, as if he was determined to exterminate the Ghost clan. Of course, other than the hatred in his heart, Li Xiao was so relentless because he had not found the whereabouts of the mountain and river diagram so far. Back then, after I led the Heavenly Policy Mansion to defeat Litian and the Ghost Tribe fled to the Wood World. Litian also sacrificed his life to destroy the space passage between the Great Thousand World and the Wood World. However, the mountain and river diagram disappeared. I searched the entire Ghost Tribe but could not find the whereabouts of the mountain and river diagram. Subsequently, I have been searching for the mountain and river diagram for so many years, but to no avail. Therefore, I am certain that the mountain and river diagram must have been brought to the Wood World by the Ghost Tribe. Li Xiao was certain that the mountain and river diagram must have been brought to the Wood World by the Ghost Tribe. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Li Xiao not to have any news about it after so many years. Li Xiao's real goal was to find the mountain and river diagram. Therefore, Li Xiao sent people to the Wood World this time, and did not hesitate to use his spiritual avatar to enter the Wood World through the space-time passage. Because the space-time passage between the Wood World and the Great Thousand World was not stable, Li Xiao's real body was definitely unable to enter the Wood World. However, it was different for his spiritual avatar. As long as Li Xiao controlled the strength of his spiritual avatar and made it so that its cultivation did not exceed the Tao realm, he could enter the Wood World through the space-time passage. Li Xiao had to find the mountain and river diagram because it was his master's and the most precious thing. After hearing Li Xiao's words, Jun Wuya fell into deep thought. Neither of them were convinced. However, after a while, Jun Wuya seemed to have suddenly realized something and his expression changed drastically. "Oh no, those little guys are in danger." At this moment, Jun Wuya's expression was extremely ugly. Hearing this, Li Xiao looked at Jun Wuya in confusion and asked with a puzzled expression, "What's wrong?" Why was Jun Wuye suddenly so nervous? Li Xiao didn't know how to react for a moment. But soon, following Jun Wuye's words, Li Xiao's expression changed greatly. Back then, are you sure that Yin Litian had died? You saw his corpse with your own eyes? As soon as Jun Wuye said this, Li Xiao's expression instantly turned ugly. After carefully recalling what happened back then, Li Xiao said with a shocked expression, "You mean Yin Litian didn't die? That's the only explanation. Otherwise, after so many years, if Yin Litian really died, how could you not have any news about the mountain and river diagram? No one who obtained such a treasure would be able to keep it a secret, unless Yin Litian didn't die in the first place and the mountain and river diagram has always been with him." Facing Li Xiao's shock, Jun Wuye said in a grave tone, "Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.